Xbox On. Welcome to Xbox On, a podcast with one host about one console, Xbox. I'm said host Jesse DeRosa, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about the latest Xbox news for the week of July 25th, 2024, including the FTC has come back to call Microsoft out for their recent Game Pass price increases. Speaking of Game Pass, rumors suggest that the service could be getting even more tier options in the near future. Finally, the Halo TV show has also been canceled, sparing us all of the nightmare. All that and more. On this week in Xbox history, in the year 2019, 5 years ago, Wolfenstein Youngblood was released for the Xbox One. That was one of the first games I ever played in a world where Xbox On existed. It was shortly after the podcast debuted, so this was like a month and a half into Xbox On's existence. I mean, that must be episode 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7 of the podcast where we talked about Wolfenstein Youngblood. I cannot believe this podcast is 5 years old. What the fuck? Also, Wolfenstein Youngblood, that game sucks. I love New Order. I love what's the other one called? The New Guard, the Old Blood, New Guard, Old Dominion, Wretches Dominion, whatever it is. The new Wolfenstein games are phenomenal. I love them so much. Youngblood was not it, but that's okay. It's a spinoff. It was there for those who enjoyed it. They got experimental with it. It didn't work for everyone. I don't really care about that. Whatever. Wolfenstein Youngblood, you go be what you are. Just don't come back is all I'm going to say to that. 5 years. Wow, man. Time flies by when a global pandemic rips about 2.5 years of everyone's life away from them, huh? But hey, welcome to Xbox On. Tim R. writes in and says, Jesse, I heard there's a Ratatouille number 2 coming out, like Ratatouille with a 2 coming out. And of course, my first thought was about an Xbox podcast. Thanks for another great episode. Thank you, Tim R., for successfully being converted to where whenever someone mentions Pixar or Disney or theme parks or Taco Bell for some reason, hopefully, maybe, just maybe, some stupid kid's Xbox podcast gets deeply associated with, I don't know, when you see iconic Pirates of the Caribbean artwork made by the late, great Mark Davis, maybe you look at that and you go, huh, why does this make me want to play Gears of War 2 so bad? I don't know. Maybe I had something to do with it. I like to think maybe I did, but that's a little arrogant. So thank you, Tim R. Happy day to you. Happy podcast day to you and to all of you out there. Episode 269. Nice. Hey, guys. We got news to talk about. I feel like this is the first week in a while where we really have. I mean, I guess technically we had some big news the other week when those Game Pass price increases happened and things like that, but that was like one big story on an otherwise slow news week. This is like a steady roundup of news to get through here this week. So I'm expensive. I'm expensive. I cost a lot. I'm a fucking pay to play hooker. No, I'm excited to get into all the news with you guys today because it's just been a while since I don't know, we got to lean on the news cycle to keep us entertained and give us something to talk about, and less so on me and my woefully inept personality trying to keep you all engaged. So thank you, news cycle, for giving us a reason to come together and have something to say this week. All right, notable game releases of the week. Nothing really to talk about here. I mean, last week was pretty front-loaded. What am I saying, front-loaded? It was the middle of the month. Last week was pretty loaded with new releases. You got some football games. You got some Game Pass games. You got that Flintlock. For me, of course, you got Path of the Goddess, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here. But, yeah, I mean, what do you want, man? Last week was a good week. There's always some games to play. Nothing to talk about this week. Get the fuck out of here. Let's get into our mildly amusing stories, updates, stories that are going to kind of kick us off, whet our palate, whet our appetite as we begin this week's news cycle. Starting with a confirmation of a story we talked about last week, which is that Modern Warfare 3, no, not the woefully inept Modern Warfare 3 from 2011, but rather the woefully inept Modern Warfare 3 from 2023, is officially coming to Game Pass this week. In fact, as of the day you're listening to this podcast, it's out, baby. one of Sledgehammer Games' many disappointing Call of Duty entries, is now the first Call of Duty to ever grace Game Pass services. I don't know why that is like a significant thing that I keep thinking about, but it's kind of disappointing. It's like the first time Call of Duty ever came to Game Pass, and it's one of the most disappointing, middling entries in the franchise. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the current, most recent Call of Duty entry is now in Game Pass. What a great get for the service. What a great added bonus for all you guys out there who are going, maybe I will subscribe to Game Pass when Black Ops 6 comes out. Maybe I'll check that out. This is a way that maybe they squeeze a couple people in here sooner. Maybe some lapsed COD fans who are Xbox gamers, or people who are just curious about getting a game like Call of Duty on a service like Game Pass. Maybe this is a way to get them in a little sooner by having Modern Warfare 3 launch in a Game Pass right in time for Season 5 of the game's content. So there's some new shit to play there if you've already played Modern Warfare 3. But hey, pretty fucking good get for Game Pass. Obviously, this isn't a day one release. When we get Black Ops 6, that will be an even more notable release for Game Pass, no doubt. But it's pretty fucking crazy. You know, I know we're all bitching and moaning about the price of Game Pass going up. For $20 a month, you get all the stuff Game Pass has always had, the kinds of, you know, games that it's always gotten, and now you have Call of Duty, the biggest game out there. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. So, cool. So this was confirmed after rumors from that XTOS1 Xputer guy leaked them the other week. So it's out now, but that's not the only thing, because now Xputer writer XTOS1, or however you're supposed to say it, is saying here, hey, I got another scoop for you for Game Pass. So in August, on August 8th to be precise, they're saying that Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy will be put into Game Pass as well. So this will be another Activision Blizzard title. So we had Diablo 4 in March. We got Modern Warfare 3 now, just happening now. And then in August, we'll get Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. He's also saying, or they are also saying, that the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, as well as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, are coming to Game Pass, quote unquote, very soon. So maybe that's September. I don't know. But it seems like now is the time. Xbox is finally starting to trickle some Activision Blizzard content into the Game Pass catalog. I think they're saying, hey, prices went up for Game Pass, but you know how we're going to make it up to you? Here's some Activision Blizzard content, because we know you guys have been waiting for that, and we were sitting on it waiting for the inevitable price increase as an excuse to kind of soften the blow, as a way to soften the blow. Here are those Activision Blizzard games you guys wanted. I mean, I don't know how you can interpret this any other way, but with the track record of this Xputer writer, you got to assume that this Crash, Spyro, and Tony Hawk rumor is probably 100% accurate. So look forward to more Game Pass content very soon. And what's great here is that while I already own Modern Warfare 3, while Diablo 4 didn't really do it for me, even though I thought I was going to love it once it came to Game Pass and I played it, and even though I've already bought Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 remake because I'm not an idiot, I have been holding off on Spyro and Crash for a couple years, knowing that they would come to Game Pass, skipping every time they're on like a $13 sale or whatever. I always skip them because I'm like, I know it'll be in Game Pass soon enough. So I am actually excited to hop into the Spyro Reignited trilogy, because I love those old Spyro games so much. Very nostalgic childhood games for me. So I will definitely have fun getting into those through Game Pass. So yeah, shout out to Game Pass for becoming an even stronger service. We'll probably have to touch on Game Pass, you know, the quality of it and all that a little bit more as we get into the main news, because it's going to come up with our main story this week with FTC and everything. So we can get into some more discussion on that later. But for now, let's just celebrate the games that we are for sure getting and / you know, rumored to be getting, which is all but confirmed. So that's cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, new games, cool stuff. Remember Splitgate? It was that awesome free-to-play PC arena shooter, very Halo inspired, that came out in 2020. No, it was 2021, I think. Yeah, it was 2021, because it was right around the time I got this PC, and I was like, wow, I have a PC that can play games. Yeah, Splitgate was an awesome free-to-play first-person shooter, worked on by a lot of ex-Halo and Bungie people and things like that, 343 and Bungie people. And they just announced they're going to make a sequel, Splitgate 2, and it's being developed by 1047 Games. They said that this game is supposed to come, I think, in 2025, next year. They don't have a specific release date for it, but just sometime next year is the plan. They said that it is being built with a vastly experienced team, and they promise to bring a familiar but entirely new experience to fans. So I actually do kind of look forward to this because I really liked the first Splitgate, and then it's I don't know, its traction kind of got stopped because Halo Infinite came out just a few months after this game. And that was like, okay, well, this is like the Halo thing to satiate our appetite while we wait for Halo Infinite. Then Halo Infinite came out and it was like, all right, bye, Splitgate. So hopefully Splitgate 2 can come out in a time where it can, serve the market a little better. It's in between Halo games and things like that. We don't see any Halo game coming out anytime too soon, so this should be a pretty good timing. Plus, I don't know that we should expect any other Halo-type shooter to hit the scene around whatever next year to take the thunder away from this game. But assuming that it's at least as good as the first game, this should be something worth looking at, because Splitgate, the first one, was just really fun. It was that arena first-person shooter, but you could also play with portals, and it was like you could just like throw a portal at the wall, jump through the wall, run upstairs sideways, upside down because you came through your portal, and shoot a guy from behind and just do crazy stuff. It was a fun mechanic that was very cumbersome looking from the outside, but once you played it, you got the hang of it. It was actually really intuitive and fun. And I would love to jump back into Splitgate with a new entry, even though honestly there's probably a lot that happened in the first game that I never got to experience after those first few months. So maybe I should just go back to that. I don't know. Probably not. But Splitgate 2, I welcome it. I hope they can have a day and date launch with a console and PC this time, because I believe last time it was on PC for a while before it came to PlayStation and Xbox. So not too long. It was a couple months, but I feel like, a unified launch would maybe be good, because I don't think the second time around I'm going to play it on my PC. I think I'm going to wait for the Xbox version. So anyway, Splitgate 2, pretty cool stuff. Keeping it going with the opening news stories. We got a couple more here. Just two more. First one of these two. We just got to talk about this Assassin's Creed thing that's going on. I was not going to address this. Basically, ever since Assassin's Creed Shadow was revealed, which was what, like 1-2 months ago? It's been like 4-6 weeks, something like that. I want to be careful with what I say. Not the internet has been in an uproar. It's very specifically that corner of the internet that's always looking for a reason to be upset and pissed off. And then you think it's the whole internet because algorithms try and push the rage bait shit to you constantly. That predictable corner of the internet has been on fire ever since this game was announced. And I mostly just avoided talking about it, not because I'm like, I'm walking on eggshells. I'm afraid that if I speak my mind politically, people might disagree with me and unsubscribe to my podcast or accuse me of being woke or a Nazi or communist or a piece of shit or leftist or righty, or I don't give a shit about any of that. I really just avoided talking about this because, oh my God, I couldn't care less. I would just so much rather sit here and waste your time talking about why I'm moderately upset with that new Encanto stage show at Epcot, despite it having nothing to do with Xbox, then get into the weeds on Assassin's Creed having a black protagonist in a Japanese setting, because I don't give a fuck. Let's make one thing first, clear before we get into reading the news story. Let's get one thing clear first and foremost. The thing that's going to make Assassin's Creed Shadows a good game or a bad game is not going to be whether it's set in Japan or set in fucking Iran or fucking France. God forbid, France. Ew. It's not going to be whether or not the people in the game are Asian or European or whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter if the character you play as is black, even if it's set in feudal Japan. What's going to make this game good or bad is whether or not it is fun to play. And it is an Assassin's Creed game, so spoiler alert, this game is going to be boring as fuck, because Assassin's Creed is boring as fuck. So obviously that's very much just my personal subjective take on Assassin's Creed. I know a lot of Xbox fans very much love Assassin's Creed. I'm just being a little pedantic and silly with that comment. But the point being, I'm so tired of people getting lost with the plot of all of this shit with movies and video games. The diversity, inclusion mandate. It's like, listen, man, is the movie entertaining or not? Is the video game fun to play or not? Is the book a good book or not? Focus on that first, and then have your fucking field day with the diversity inclusion shit, okay? So obviously, there's been this is a small piece of a much bigger story that's been going on. Man, I want to say for the better part of the summer, really, maybe even started more in the springtime. And I guess if you really want to get in the weeds with it, this has been a story that's been kind of bubbling in the background for maybe a year or more. But basically, there's this company. I'm just going to make this so overly simplified so we can move on with our lives. There's this company, Sweet Baby Inc. They are this, I don't know what you want to call them, this this group that other companies hire to go through their games and to go, okay, it's a panel made of quote unquote a diverse array of people and, Kotaku looking motherfuckers. And they go through and they go, okay, Spider-Man 2, a game that's being made by probably mostly a bunch of white American dudes from California. Okay. We went through your game. We went through all the dialogue. We went through and played every corner of the game and looked at all the little Easter eggs and everything in the game and said, we thought this flag might be moderately offensive to this group of gamers. This line could be misinterpreted by this demographic of players based on this, cultural phrase, which doesn't really translate well to this group of people, but this group of people might get. In theory, it is just a cultural sensitivity group that gets hired by other companies to go through, look at their creative project and go, hey, we recommend you make this series of changes to avoid making the game unsavory or controversial or offensive or insensitive in some way or fashion to one group of people or another. In theory, I think that's fine. It's totally optional whether or not you want to hire a company to do that kind of thing. And if someone wants to go the extra mile to make sure that they are not ignorantly or just, whatever, just overlooking something that may be considered offensive or, rude to another culture or group of people or whatever, to each their own. Like, you have every fucking right as an organization, a business to do that. I know this conversation goes way deeper with the whole like BlackRock and companies that won't invest in other corporations unless they hit a diversity quota. And the reason why Disney's woke is because they're trying to get investment money from these companies and they got their arms tied with all this money they put into the Fox acquisition. So now they really need this investment money. But in order to do that, they have to make all their movies gay. That's why in Lightyear there's a lesbian. Shut up, dude. I don't care about any of that. I know things are happening in the background. We're not going to get that deep with this. But this game has now, this Assassin's Creed Shadows game, has kind of become the new poster child for this controversy because in the game, you play as a black, well, there's two characters. There's a male and a female character, and I guess you get to choose which one you play as, but the male character is a black samurai, even though the game is set in like feudal Japan. And I guess they're saying that this is a character who is inspired by a real person who, legend says existed, who was a black person who somehow got to Japan during the feudal era, probably through some kind of trade route or something, and ended up kind of becoming this samurai figure. And it's obviously, it's not like, oh yeah, there are tons of black people who are samurais in the, in the 1600s in Japan. No, obviously not. But they're saying that apparently this is very loosely based on a historical figure who did in some way, shape, or form exist. And even though this game isn't trying to be an exact culturally accurate and historically accurate retelling of that person, it is inspired by, or this character is inspired by. Honestly, in an isolated bubble on its own, it's like, that's actually kind of fucking cool. Like if this was 2007, I feel that's the problem with this shit, this diversity shit is like there's this group of people that's always looking to get offended by the fact that they're changing things. But it's like in 2007, if there was like a black dude, but he's a samurai and he's in Japan and everyone else is Japanese, but the one guy's black and he's a samurai, and he's got a sword and he's fucking got awesome dreads and he's slashing shit and killing things. People, dude, fucking bros would have been like, oh my God, that's so badass. That's such a fucking cool movie or video game, whatever the fuck it is, or TV show. And everyone would have eaten that shit up. But because we live in a world where everyone has to be so fucking pissed off all the time, whether it's one end or the other, all of a sudden this has to be a problem. It's like, you're trying to be diverse. You're trying to force a black character into this historically inaccurate period of time where there wouldn't have been black people in Japan because you're trying to be woke. You're trying to be inclusive. You're trying to hit a diversity agenda. It's like, maybe. I mean, I can't put a gun to the creator's head and be like, hey, narrative director or fucking writing room staff, prove to me that you did this because you're trying to hit a diversity quota. I don't know. Maybe they did do it for diversity reasons. Maybe they just thought the idea of a black samurai in feudal Japan is just kind of badass. I don't fucking know. To me, the idea kind of sounds cool, but at the end of the day, I don't give a shit because it's still tied to this character, this setting, this situation is still tied to a game series that has historically never interested me in the slightest. So after 15 years of not giving a shit about Assassin's Creed, I'm not going to suddenly be like, you know what? I need to evangelize, the people who are being misrepresented and overlooked by calling to question Ubisoft's decision to change a Japanese character to whatever. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. It's just so fucking silly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I mean, don't get me wrong. there have definitely been examples of movies and video games in the past 5, 7, 8, maybe 10 years where there has been somewhat of a inelegant injection of diverse characters or narratives to try and make a piece of art or entertainment seem like it is, part, like, we're on the right side of history. We're with the message. We get it. We're anti this and we're pro this and we're the good guys. I get it. There have been some examples of movies and TV shows and things that have done that kind of thing in history. And a lot of times it sucks, not because it sucks when you change a white character to a black character or when you make a male character or a female character, but because it sucks when you make a creative decision based on trying to please and grandstand to an audience of people, as opposed to doing it because you think this is the cool thing or the thing that best serves the narrative or the most fun idea for the entertainment piece. And so from this perspective, I just got to say, this is such a much to do about nothing, nonsensical bullshit kind of thing. And I hate that we have to talk about it because I don't care. I get it. People have been asking for the feudal Japan Assassin's Creed game for like 10, 12 years at this point. People have been longing for it, waiting for it. And now here it is. Here's your Japanese Assassin's Creed game with samurais that you've been asking for. But one of the main characters is black in a time period where there were pretty much no black people in Japan. And that's especially, underlined and brought to everyone's attention by the fact that there pretty much aren't black people in Japan, even in modernity, let alone in the 1580s or whatever. So it's like, I get it. But also, to go back to my earlier point, who gives a fuck? In Assassin's Creed, you go into the fucking Matrix, you put a brain helmet on, and your stupid fucking nephew who masturbates chronically and has no social life goes into the history where his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Donatello Leonardo Michelangelo, the European fifth, goes around running on rooftops, stabbing people with a knife that's shoved up his stupid robe, even though it's 174 degrees in southern Italy. It's like, who gives a shit, man? Assassin's Creed was never a historically accurate series. These games were never... these games were made interesting because it was like, let's take fragments of historical events and create ridiculous stories around them. So it's like, how is this not perfectly in line with that mode of thinking? I just don't see how this is really any fucking different. So I get it. I get why people have a heightened sensitivity and are a little more knee-jerk reaction to this world of like, Are they making that decision because they think it's a good decision for the narrative, or are they making that decision because they're trying to hit a diversity quota? Here's the thing. Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is the game still good? Is the story still good? Is it hindered by that diversity change or whatever? And in most cases, especially with video games, probably not. Probably not. In fact, we have a comment at the bottom. We'll get to it in a second. Let's read. So that's way too much preamble. Here's the thing. Let's read the thing, right? So this comes from Ubisoft. They took to Twitter and they did the thing they shouldn't have fucking done. And they made the big wall of text with the black background on Twitter and like a message to our community. And they did the thing. They should have just fucking said nothing, because the internet is make-believe and because the outrage of people on the internet is nonsense. And honestly, all the people bitching and moaning about the black character in the Japanese game is probably just going to draw more attention to the game, therefore make more people be like, oh yeah, new Assassin's Creed game, I'll play that. So if anything, this is probably only ever going to help the game. But let's read, shall we? This is the stupid fucking thing that Ubisoft felt like they had to put on Twitter to grandstand to the 500,000 mentally R-word people on the internet who represent the entirety of video game players around the real world, but shouldn't, because most of us don't have 2 fucking brain cells and at least are cognizant enough to know that we just want the game to be good. Who cares? Who gives a shit, dude? I don't care if Master Chief takes his helmet off in the next game and he's a fucking cat alien with 2 vaginas and he's LGBT friendly. As long as they can somehow make that work into being one of the coolest Halo narratives of all time, who gives a flying fuck? I doubt they can make that work. I really fucking doubt they can make that work. But the point is, let's just play the fucking game. Let's find out. All you motherfuckers are going to play the game anyway, because you gotta try and get clout on YouTube. So you know you're going to play the game anyway. So just keep your fucking mouth shut. All right, here's the statement. So the guy's name is Yasuki. That's the character's name.
Blah, 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 blah. So, here it is. They even mentioned what I was touching on. They say Yasuki is one of the playable characters in the game 1 of 2, and he's based on a real historical figure who is an African man who served the Japanese daimyo Oda Nobunaga, whatever dynasty, whatever fucking people in 1581. Oh my God, who gives a shit? 1581. They didn't even have iPod video back then. All right. Anyway, so he's under scrutiny in Twitter and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and the fucking ear tampons and all the things, right? So in a statement, here's what Ubisoft had to say. Quote, I can't wait for all the people who are going to stop listening to podcasts because now I'm somehow saying Donald Trump, ear tampon, who gives a shit if the guy's black? What if it's a fun game anyway? That for some percentage of people, that is now going to translate to, you love Joe Biden, don't you? Somehow, isn't it? Isn't it? You're that fucking predictable, isn't it? All right, here's the quote. Since the announcement of Assassin's Creed Shadows, we've received many positive reactions, but also some criticism, including from you, our Japanese players. Oh, so this is specifically reaching the Japanese audience. I forgot this is another side of the conversation where apparently there's a group of Japanese players who feel like it's like, hey, we don't get a lot of Western games that represent Japanese people, so what the fuck? You know, why are you going to make the character black when we already aren't represented enough by Western media? So anyway, here's what they say. We share your passion for history and deeply respect and care for the historical and cultural integrity of your rich heritage. So right off the bat, so fucking cringy. This American PR team representing this British publisher who doesn't give a shit. They're just out to make money. They don't actually give a shit about anyone. Out here trying to platform and apologize publicly to this Japanese consumer base, which is not even probably the majority of how Japanese consumers feel. It's just a bunch of loud assholes online. Our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games, including Shadows, as factually representative of history or historical characters. Instead, we aim to spark curiosity and encourage players to explore and learn more about historical settings that we get inspired by. Addressing the online criticism, the statement continues with the following quote. We acknowledge that some elements of the promotional materials have caused concern within the Japanese community, and for this, we sincerely apologize. I hope they do like the Japanese thing where they do like the, you know, the deep, like the many deep bows, like we're so sorry. These fucking Frenchmen who just smell like body odor and cigarettes and coffee are just like profusely bowing over and over again. Anyway, what are we saying? Also, I love it. It's like French is such a white culture for, we decided, so I'm allowed to make fun of that one. Anyway, we also want to clarify that we have been consulting with many people throughout the development process. They're in no way responsible for the decision that has taken the creative teams in the interest of gameplay and entertainment. Pertaining to Yasuke, Ubisoft says that the unique or mysterious life made him an ideal candidate to tell an Assassin's Creed story with the setting of feudal Japan. Quote, while Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadow, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion, it says. We have woven this carefully into our narrative, and with our other lead character, the Japanese shinobi Naoi, whatever, who gives a shit, who is equally important to the game. Our dual protagonists provide players with different gameplay styles. Well, look, there you fucking go. A little something for everyone. I don't give a shit. I don't care if they fucking make a Fast and Furious 11 where Paul Walker just magically isn't dead, but he's played by Chris Rock because whatever. That would be funny. I would watch that movie still. I liked Paul Walker, but I like to think Paul Walker's up in heaven going, yo, they recast me with Chris Rock. That's great. That's great. And then some white guy wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Chris Rock and Ludacris because they're both in the movie. It would be a fun time, okay? And I'm just saying, who gives a shit? So the apologizing and then, of course, the onslaught of comments. This is Sweet Baby Inc. This is DEI. And oh my God, cry me a fucking... But the thing I love about this the most is it's like in 2016, 2017, it was very much like, oh, these fucking liberals are so soft. They get so butthurt. It's like, oh, everything has to be about, like, we need more representation. Why can't men rule the world? And now it's like the script has completely flipped. And it's just like all these fucking, like, anti-woke, I'm with Trump kind of people. And it's just, like, constantly just bitching and moaning about, like, this, they ruined everything. They made it woke. They did this. It's like, dude, how about instead of red versus blue, instead of us versus them, how about just stop being a little fucking bitch and you just be an individual? Stop trying to find a color to identify with and just fucking let everything in life come at you as it is, one thing at a time, and take on every video game, every political event, every news story, every movie, Every Star Wars movie, TV show, Disney Plus series, fucking Star Wars is the worst. It's always those fucking Star Wars fans. Just take everything one thing at a time and judge it in its own context. You can use global events and modern history and social issues to help paint your perspective of creative projects and how things get to where they are. That makes sense. It's a relevant part of interpreting art. But like, let's just fucking take everything one piece at a time, okay? I want to go to this comment that we got. I put it at the end of the show, but I'm going to pull it up. We're going to do it now because it's, first of all, I don't want to get back into this discussion again because, yeah. And secondly, because this isn't the kind of comment we normally get on Xbox On, and it plays into this. So let's just do it all now. So this is one of those weeks, heads up. This is one of those weeks where, last week was rather, where I titled the podcast something because I was just trying to upload the podcast in time to get to bed, in a reasonable hour of the night. And so I just had to come up with the title of the podcast. And then 2 days later realized, I shouldn't have named the podcast that because it came off as kind of like engagement bait. And now people are, people who do not listen to the podcast are coming across this title and this thumbnail on YouTube and then just doing drive-by comments now because they have to throw in their 2 cents. So the title of last week's episode was like, is gaming on the decline or something like that? And then I just ended up getting like 20 comments from people who've never listened to Xbox On before. And it's just like, no, it's like, gaming's not on decline. Xbox is, you're dumb, you're gay. Like all these, those kind of drive-by comments. So I got a lot of them. So I want to apologize in advance. If you are someone who listens to Xbox On and last week just encouraged you for the first time to write in, thank you. No, I genuinely appreciate that. I'm not trying to insult you or be mean in any way. I'm just having a hard time with all these new comments, trying to determine which ones are people who listen to the podcast and have something to say, and which ones are people that saw the thumbnail and just had to make a comment without listening to more than 2 goddamn seconds of me rambling about Epcot. So I just putting that out there. But here is one of those comments. So, sincerely yours, AK74, wrote in, and again, never wrote on the podcast before. Listen, maybe you're a longtime listener of Xbox On. Thank you. I appreciate it. And as always, as I say every week, you can say something nice, you can say something mean, you can say something in between. I don't give a shit. You can think I'm the dumbest motherfucker in the world, but maybe you listen to the podcast anyway, and you just finally decide I've had enough. I want to comment in and combat something you said, Jesse. That's fine. Welcome aboard. But I just want to say, I don't know which one of you guys are just drive-by commenters and which one of you are real comments, but sincerely yours, AK74, wrote in with the following comment. And part of the reason I think this is probably just some drive-by comment is because it's one of those comments where it got a bunch of upvotes, which means that people were pissed off because they saw the title and the thumbnail, clicked on it, downvoted the video, went into the comments, wrote their predetermined feelings about things because they refused to have anything else influence their perspective on life, and then looked for the other comments that agreed with their sentiment and hit upvote, and then clicked off the podcast before they could actually hear anything the podcast was about, because God forbid you actually get exposed to other points of view and other perspectives. I mean, don't you want to know? Aren't you? Listen, if you clicked on the podcast because you think I'm a dumbass and Xbox is dumb and PlayStation is good and Donald Trump is good and Joe Biden is bad and I am dumb and Universal is good and Disney is bad, don't you want to at least find out what I think about the latest Street Chalupas at Taco Bell? Stick around for a goddamn second and let's hear each other out as one human to another. Anyway, now that we're like 45 minutes derailed, sincerely yours, AK74, writes and says, I don't think people are gaming less nowadays. I just think they aren't buying the slop that Microsoft DEI'd out of their ass. Seriously, I haven't wanted to buy a game since D4, which for those who don't remember, D4 is like a launch window Xbox One game. I mean, that game came out, 2014? Like early 2014? Holy shit. He said, I haven't wanted to buy a game since D4 and was super disappointed in that game. And the rest is about pushing a message rather than entertaining. I was an OG Counter-Strike player in the first on the first Xbox Live. I have watched it burn in the last decade. So again, sincerely yours. Maybe you're a fan of the podcast and you just decided enough is enough. I got to write in and disagree with you, Jesse. If that's the case, thank you for writing in. I appreciate you providing your perspective, and you're entitled to your perspective and your opinion. But assuming you are a drive-by commenter, you didn't listen to the podcast, and you're probably never coming back, and you're probably not listening to my response to your comment right now, well then, cracks knuckles. Allow me to dig in a little bit here, okay? I'm not going to try to school you. I'm not smart enough or savvy enough to construct an argument like that, so rather just let me ask, plain and simple. D4, a game that came out in 2014 for the Xbox One when the console was barely 6 months old. Since then, it's 2024. It's been 10 years, my guy. What the fuck has Microsoft DEI'd out of their ass? What quote-unquote slop have they put out as games since then? I'm just gonna, this isn't comprehensive. I'm just gonna list a number of Xbox-oriented games that we've gotten over the past 10 years. These are exclusives, timed exclusive, games with marketing deal, games that are just Xbox-centric. So, give or take, past 10 years. Titanfall, Wolfenstein, Quantum Break, Sunset Overdrive, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Halo 5, Halo Infinite, Gears 4, Gears 5, Sea of Thieves, Forza Motorsport 3, 4, and 5, Forza Motorsport 5, 6, 7, and the new one, as well as Forza Horizon 3, 4, and 5. You know, Xbox doesn't have that many games. What do you want me to say? Like, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. I'm just, Hellblade 2, Starfield. I guess what I'm trying to do here is figure out where the DEI slop is in all these games, because I'm thinking about it and like, listen, man, there are lots of valid criticisms to be levied at Microsoft for the games that they've put out on Xbox over the past 10 years. But I don't know where the DEI slop comes from and all that. Like, I'm trying hard to think about some prominent Xbox games that have happened in the past 10 years and how someone could 40 chess twist it into a fucking pretzel knot to turn it into some culture war argument, when in reality that game probably has nothing to do with that. But the only thing I can think of is they desexualized Cortana with Halo Infinite. They made Kate Diaz a main character in Gears of War for the new generation of characters, and she is a female with a Hispanic last name. And they also made Dell, the second supporting character, who is a black man in Gears of War, and they made Marcus Phoenix's kid clearly the third tier character. I'm guessing this is definitely an allusion to Gears, because I know Gears is the one people like to shit on. But other than that, I'm just trying to think. I'm like, is this because they had a marketing deal with Tomb Raider in 2015? Is this because Senua is a woman with a mental health issue in Hellblade, and that's why Microsoft is pushing this diversity, inclusion, and equity movement in their game? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man. Listen, I love Halo 5, and I know people are divided on that game and mostly dislike it, but I know the criticisms about Halo 5 is you don't play as Master Chief a lot. The multiplayer is a little too sweaty. The story just gets wrapped up way too quickly and definitely needs more time to flesh it out. We didn't get a badass battle scene between Locke and Master Chief. I know in Halo Infinite, a lot of the criticism is that the game just kind of ends and doesn't get the DLC and the continuation narrative it needs. It doesn't do a good job tying Halo 5 to Halo 6. I know in Gears of War, big criticism in the newer games is that Gears 5 ends on a cliffhanger, and people wish that there was more inclusion of the original characters, and people don't like the new characters as much, which is totally personal opinion. I think the new characters are great. But I'm just trying to is it Forza? Do you feel like the Forza cars are too woke now? Or is it like too many European cars, not enough American vehicles? And like, what the fuck where's the DEI in all these modern Microsoft games? I just don't understand what the fuck. Is Age of Empires too woke for people? Like, what's Microsoft Flight Sim? Is it because like did they upgrade all the sexy flight attendants to be pilots in the new Flight Sim game? Like, what are they doing that's so DEI? I don't understand. So it's weird, man. I feel like there is this group of people who, 10 years ago, it was like everyone was pointing and laughing at, or everyone on that side was pointing and laughing at other people for being like, you guys are such snowflakes. Why do you have to keep subdividing yourself? Why do you need to identify if you're LGBT, questioning, and trans? It's so confusing. Why do you need to be all these things? And now it's like this very same group of people who's bitching about like, why can't we just stop identifying everyone, trying to split things up a million ways, is now like freaking out over everything. Like, there's a black person in Ghostbusters. Oh my God, it's woke. It's like, dude, it's okay. I don't know if you know this, but black people exist. They make up like 15 or 20% of the U.S. population. So it's like, a pretty large group of people. We can't ignore the fact that they exist and they're part of the cultural fabric of our goddamn nation, at least here. Like, what do you want to do about it? Women exist. They're 50% of the population, and they have vaginas, and they bleed once a month. It's like it's not like an opinion. It's like this happens, man. And gay people exist. You want to know why you hear so much about gay now? It's not because the fucking liberals are trying to shove gay down your throat. It's because gay people used to have to hide the fact that they were gay because they'd be beat the fuck up. And now we live in a world that's like, it's okay to be gay. And so now people are like, oh, I can be openly gay now? Cool. And yeah, corporations are trying to fucking make a profit off of it. People are like, oh, you have a dick and you like dick up your ass? Okay, we'll buy a fucking flag 5 times a year and eat our fucking Mickey Mouse cake with sprinkles on it, with rainbow sprinkles. That'll give you cancer and diabetes at the same. Yeah, of course there is the issue of corporations trying to turn a profit off of every social movement, which is disgusting and in poor taste. But from person to person, creative figure to consumer, shut the fuck up, man. It's a fucking video game. I don't think I've played a single Xbox game in the past decade. I'm talking first party, Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, even Activision Blizzard game, really, in the past decade where I'm like, oh, this is woke. I mean, I guess you could argue Call of Duty Vanguard tried to do that a little bit, but Call of Duty Vanguard sucks not because it tried to do some diversity shit. Call of Duty Vanguard sucks because that game sucks, man. Like, I don't know, the fucking forced strong female protagonist was the least of that game's problems. I mean, I don't know, man. So I'll drop it at this point. I'm sure the majority of regular, normal, functioning people who are just trying to make a goddamn paycheck, pay their rent or mortgage, and feed their children are probably like, Jesse, you can calm down. We're pretty much all on the same team here. Nobody gives a shit, Spider-Man Miles Morales is not a woke game. It is just a fucking video game. And yeah, there's a half black, half Puerto Rican version of Spider-Man. And guess what? He's just as fun and relatable as the Peter Parker version. And it has nothing to do with DEI. It's just because, God forbid, someone else be inspired to do their interpretation of Spider-Man and it be good. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a straw man argument in my opinion. Have there been creative? And I mean, I think you have this complaint a lot more validated in the movie space than you do in the game space, but that is a symptom of a much greater problem that Hollywood has, which is that is just a creatively vapid piece of shit place. And that has a lot less to do with, just in general with entertainment being DEI'd. I think that's just, dude, you sound silly, man. Like, just come on, man. Just be cool, man. Just care about something that matters. We're about to get into something that really matters, though, because Taco Bell does have a new menu item that I'm just over the moon excited to talk to you guys about. And I don't know, man. I know it's a difficult conversation to talk because everything is so front loaded and everyone has these preconceived notions about what this opinion and this stance means about you as a person. But like, take it from someone who I just don't give a shit, man. I hate all the politicians. I hate all the corporations. I don't give a shit. If you're gay, go be gay. Just go be so fucking gay. I don't care. Just go have the best gay time of your life. I'm not going to try to sit here and deny the fact that black people and women exist and that maybe we should sometimes have black people and women in our movies because maybe it'd be nice if movies, I don't know, accurately. It's just so weird, man. People just bitch and moan about like, oh, this is so unrealistic. Why is everyone a woman in this movie? It's like, that's what you're fixated on. You don't care about the fact that he just survived an explosion. You just care about the fact that 4 of the main characters are women. Like, come on, man. Like, who gives a shit about realism? Whatever. Some little girl out there feels seen and heard because a big movie came out and it was about Barbie. Good for her. Who gives a shit? Anyway, I say who gives a shit a lot. Like, I'm going to let this go and then I keep going. So let's just let this go. Speaking of GoldenEye 007, because I know that's what this conversation put in your head. You're thinking GoldenEye 007. Actually, that's a bad transition. That's in poor taste. So our last wrap up opening story here, or last opening story to wrap us up. It's unfortunately a somber one, but obviously, as I've done for years on the podcast, whenever something like this comes up, I just like to bring it up just to pay respects, because at the end of the day, I do Xbox On because I love video games and I've been inspired and influenced greatly by great video games made by great creatives, not by nonsensical internet arguments about stupid shit that doesn't matter. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to take a second to pay some respects to a great game developer who unfortunately is no longer with us. Brett Jones, one of the original artists of GoldenEye 007 and the Perfect Dark team at Rare. has unfortunately passed away. GoldenEye designer David Doak shared the news on social media on Thursday, writing, "R.I.P. Brett Jones. You're an absolute legend." And he later added, "So much of what made GoldenEye 007 and Perfect Dark special came from Brett's talent and rascal humor." Jones worked at Rare from 94 to 2002, so right around the time the team went over to Xbox. And his work can be seen across multiple areas of GoldenEye 007, from the modeling of all characters to creating most of the animations, building multiple backgrounds, and the front-end UI. Jones was also influential in shaping the design of Perfect Dark protagonist Joanne Dark, and voiced several characters in the N64 Classic, as well as modeling and animating the majority of them, and leading motion capture work. So, as always, just, I'm not going to sit here and lie and be like, oh, this is someone who I was very familiar with. I was always a huge fan of this person's work, but this is clearly a person who worked on a game that has just so much lasting influence. I mean, you think about like everyone you've ever met, whether they're a hardcore gamer or casual, if they were around in the early 2000s or the 90s, they have some nostalgia for 007. That is like just the quintessential split-screen multiplayer shooting game from pre-Xbox 360 time. And so obviously this is someone who's highly influential in the creation of that beloved classic game. Not to mention someone who played a critical role in the creation of Perfect Dark, a game that is incredibly relevant to Xbox today, as we're about to get a new Perfect Dark reimagining from the Coalition and from Crystal Dynamics. So obviously this person's had a lasting impact on the Xbox community and on gaming in general. So just want to say thought to Brett Jones' family and loved ones who are having to deal with that. Thank you for all that you did. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it for all of our opening news stories this week. Next, we're going to talk about the games I'm playing this week. But before I can tell you about the games I'm playing this week, I got to tell you about what I've been eating. And this is just the most exciting thing I've ever eaten and gotten to talk to you guys about, because I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. I'm not trying to be overly hype about something that's like pretty good, but not the greatest thing ever. Calm down, Jesse. Like, this is fucking good. Taco Bell. I've been kind of like boycotting Taco Bell for a little bit lately, because their most recent item was that Cheez-It Crunch Wrap and that Cheez-It Tostada. I thought that was a really stupid, like kind of tacky, just hype, kind of like internet thing where it's, clearly that menu item was created not because it is delicious and they truly believe it is the next great food item at Taco Bell. It was clearly created because they're like, oh my God, we're partnering with Cheez-It. This is going to get a lot of attention on the internet, on Instagram and on YouTube and on Twitter. And so let's do this so we can get people to pay attention to Taco Bell and go out of their way to try this stupid gimmicky Cheez-It thing. So during the past month plus, where that has been like their big limited time item, I have just been boycotting Taco Bell, because I'm like, I don't want to try that item. I think that sounds gimmicky and tacky. It sounds kind of gross. Why would I want to mix this boring ass lunch snack that my mom used to give me as a kid with Taco Bell? That sounds like a bad combination. So I've been away from Taco Bell for well over a month, which is, I'm proud to say. But then on Sunday, I'm driving home from good old Claremont, Florida, pretty far away from home, just making a long commute. And I'm like, I got to pick up some dinner or something. It's Sunday night. I got to go home. I got to do laundry. I don't have time to cook. It's the end of the weekend. Let's do something a little naughty. So I call my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, I'm going to pick something up on the way home. Wawa sub, Publix sub. I'm always down for a sub. What do you want? And she goes, no, not a sub. And I was like, all right, well, the only other thing on the way home is Taco Bell. What do you want? And she goes, ooh, I could go for Taco Bell. And I was like, fuck. So I'm like, all right, let's see if they're still serving that stupid fucking Cheez-It taco thing. So I look it up, and oh boy, they just finally switched over. The Cheez-It Tostada is gone. We're done with that bullshit. And now we are on to the cheesy Street Chalupa. So I said, oh, fuck yeah, we're doing Taco Bell. Let me try these new cheesy Street Chalupas. So this is kind of like how I was bragging about that Cantina menu a few months ago. This is like from that menu, but now a further step up. This is amazing. It is these two chalupas. They're served smaller shells. So unlike the regular Taco Bell chalupas, these are like half the size. It's like a street taco. That's why it's called a street chalupa, where it's, the small version. So an order comes with, you can choose steak or chicken, but it's these two mini chalupas, and they're like double shelled chalupas with melty cheese in the middle, in between the two layers of chalupa shell. And they are fried and golden and crispy and chewy and delicious and cheesy. And then on the inside, they put steak or chicken, your choice of protein, and then onions, cilantro, and a creamy, like, I don't know what it is, like a chipotle mayo sauce or something like that. And it is probably the best thing Taco Bell has ever put on the menu. This is me. I'm not being nostalgic. We're not talking about the good old days when Taco Bell was this or when they used to have that menu item. Listen, props where props are due. This is Taco Bell doing the best work I think they've ever done. This is better than the XXL grilled stuffed burrito. This is better than that chicken flatbread they used to have a long time ago. This is better than the grilled cheese burrito. This is better than the Cantina menu. This is better than, all the things people are so nostalgic for. The volcano menu and the Mexican pizza and all the old school, the Del Double Taco or whatever. I don't know what they were fucking called. All the things people miss from the older Taco Bell menus. I gotta say, this food item tops every single thing I've ever eaten at Taco Bell. It is that good. It is so good. In fact, I tried it the first time and I got steak because that was the way they were advertising it. So I was like, normally I go for chicken, but let me try steak because that's what they're advertising. It was so fucking good that the next day, even though it was a Monday, and on Monday through Friday, I eat healthy. I pack my own lunch. I eat my oats. I eat my carrot sticks. I'm a good boy. I drink plenty of water. I don't put cream in my coffee. It's just a little sugar and just straight coffee. Even though I'm usually a good boy on Mondays through Fridays, this thing was so good on Sunday night that on Monday, I intentionally didn't bring lunch to work, took a lunch break, went down to the nearest Taco Bell, and got even more of these bad boys because they were just that fucking good. And then I got a couple of my coworkers hooked on these things. And so now I got the whole office at work is talking about how good these cheesy street chalupas are. We're all having a good time. They're delicious. Oh my God, man. I cannot recommend these enough. If you like their regular chalupas, don't even think about that. This is so much better than their regular chalupas. And their regular chalupas are currently like the best thing on the menu. So, I mean, the best thing at Taco Bell on their normal menu at any given time is like the Crunchwrap Supreme, the chicken chalupas, the cheesy gordita crunch, and then usually something on the value menu, like whatever their crispy tortilla burrito beefy thing is, usually something like that. At any given time, that is your best items at Taco Bell that aren't constantly rotating. This item is better than all of them. I'm telling you, it is so fucking good. Please, please, please. I don't care if you have a serious heart condition, if you're diabetic, if you promised your mother you wouldn't do it. Go out of your way and try these cheesy street chalupas. This is the stuff that dreams are made of. This one bite of this thing, and it's a reminder that this is why we live. This is why we go to work. This is why we say I love you to the people in our lives. This is why we persevere and fight to see another day. It's not for the times you get to see your kid learn how to ride a bike, or the moment where you marry your best friend / the girl of your dreams, or the moment where you got your dream job that you spent 20 years dedicating and working hard towards achieving and accomplishing. We live life for the simple moments, and I can't think of a moment more simple and more special and more sublime than that first bite on a cheesy street chalupa from Taco Bell. And so I implore you, I beg you, please give these motherfuckers a try. They are so very good. So that's it for what I've been eating, you guys. But I have been playing video games as well because I'm trying to balance my poor diet with being a lethargic piece of shit who sits on the couch and plays video games. So let's talk about the games I've been playing this week, shall we? Still Wakes the Deep. This is the game I was playing last week. Unfortunately, it's just too woke for me. The DEI really got to this one. I mean, they got accents from Scotland. I mean, whatever happened to the action hero American accents? I just feel like they really got out of control with this. Not to mention, why is the water blue? Water used to be white, but now I feel like they only cast blue water in these kinds of boat games. So I just really cannot recommend Still Wakes the Deep. Also, I think they spelled Depp wrong. It was supposed to be Still Wakes the Depp, but because Johnny Depp is a white actor, they have moved on to Deep because Deep Purple had black artists in it, and so they're just trying to be DEI, and that is why I cannot recommend this game. But Still Wakes the Deep. So I finished this game, and I really liked it. I liked this game a lot, and I highly recommend it. It is a great Game Pass get. So they build this game as kind of like it's the walking sim type game, like Gone Home, but it's like a horror version. Like they're going out of their way to say that this game is not necessarily a horror game, but is horror influenced and is supposed to be scary. Here's the quick, like, once the credits were rolling, the quick little, like, sometimes when I roll credits on a game, I just take out a notepad and just start writing a handful of thoughts just to kind of capture how I feel about the game as I'm wrapping it up, as I'm finishing it, and as I'm getting that catharsis and that little burst of like, ooh, I beat the game, So this is what I wrote. I'm going to read it verbatim from my phone. Still Wakes the Deep. A jump scare or two, definitely eerie and unsettling at times, but I would say overall tone is somber / sad. I was thinking Annihilation towards the end of the game, but sure enough, I found out the film/novel Annihilation served as inspiration for the game. Very good overall. Ending is that sad boy shit that I always go for, but the game overall is extremely linear and narrative driven, which I like, but some could find too restrictive. A couple performance imperfections and parts where visually I couldn't tell what the fuck I was looking at, but overall I quite enjoyed the game. A great time and solid Game Pass offering. Only 23% completion rate according to achievement data is really good too. So yeah, it says 23% of people who play the game got the achievement for beating the game, which for a Game Pass game, that's pretty good. That means almost a quarter of people who play this game see it through to the end, which means that the game is not filtering people out, which means it's keeping people's attention. It's not too hard. It's not too boring. So I think that's actually pretty good data for a Game Pass game. But yeah, I mean, that is my general thoughts. I know you can adjust some of the visual stuff in the settings, which I did not do, which would have fixed some of my issues with the game visually, because it has a really bad motion blur, and there are some scenes in the game where you're like running from the monster creature, but you have to like swim underwater and then look for peaks of light to catch air bubbles and then like find out where to go. And in some of those moments, I felt like it was just way too hard to understand what the fuck I was looking at. Maybe I set up my HDR and my lighting settings too poorly in the game, and my gamma was off, or I don't fucking know. You know, I'm not technical, so I don't know. Maybe that's part of it, but I definitely had that issue with the game. But that was overall a very, very minor gripe. Like I died one time because of that, you know. I got lost one time because of it as well. But for the most part, this game, solid 4.5 hour run. I think it takes 4 to 5 hours to beat generally. It took me about 4.5 hours, and I really enjoyed it. I really thought this game was good. Yeah, the game, they bill it as kind of like the creator of the game said the inspiration was kind of John Carpenter's The Thing meets Annihilation, which I'm not familiar with The Thing. I've never seen the movie. I just know it's a highly regarded movie, but I've never seen it. But I am familiar with Annihilation because it was actually a book I read when I was in college. So I'm pretty familiar with that book, and I know it was made into a movie that was also pretty well liked as well. And Cronky's actually a huge fan of these books. It's actually part of a trilogy of books that I know Cronky's a huge fan of as well. So I reached out to him. I was like, I think you got to play this game. This game's good. So definitely Annihilation esque in that it's got that weird climate fiction thing where it's like, what is this creature? It's not necessarily a person. It's not necessarily even a monster or a living, breathing entity. And the game is very intentionally ambiguous and vague about what this creature is. Is it a blob that is supposed to be representative of like the pollution from an oil rig? Is it like the ghost of all the people who work on the rigs past, like manifesting in this isolated environment where it's turning into something that's like chasing them and it's psychologically driving people insane? Is it an actual monster from outer space that's like, you know, gobbling up these people who work on this oil rig? The game never really tells you. It's kind of up to your interpretation. You can read throughout the game, you know, you can explore environments and read notes and things like that and pay attention to the narrative and try to stitch together and make sense of it yourself. But the game is not going to come outright and tell you, hey, this is what the monster is. This is what our artistic intention behind this was. So it's kind of up for your interpretation if you like that kind of thing. But I liked it a lot. I thought this game was just really cool. It was very eerie, but definitely towards the end, it's just very sad. It's one of those kind of like gut punching endings when you're like, oh, fuck, I kind of hoped something good would happen, but it's like the bad thing happens at the end, and then on top of that, there's like the flashbacks to like kind of twist the knife in you and make you feel extra bad about it. It's like, I actually really want to spoil it. Like, I really want to spoil it because I love that emo shit. And this game has such a fucking just feel the pain emo moment kind of with its ending, and it just sucks. But I love it. I love that good feeling of like, so emo. Everything's so sad. God, the world's so tough. So it really worked for me. I like this game a lot. Narratively, it's not groundbreaking. It's not like, wow, I can't believe they did that. But it's a game that will get you in the feels, and it's a game that will make you feel a little unsettled. And if you like spooky, scary things, I don't think this, you know, if you're sensitive to scary stuff, I don't think this game's gonna like make you stay up at night by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't really find it all that scary, but I would definitely say it's more of a combination of eeriness and somberness and less of like, oh god, I'm scared, you know. But yeah, overall, really enjoy this game. Shout out to the Chinese Room, this developer. I played their other game Everybody's gone to the Rapture. I think this game is a huge step up from that. And I was actually a little surprised to see the reviews for it. It seems like this game's kind of Metacritic averaging around like a high 7 kind of range. If I had to just arbitrarily rate this game, I'd give it a B+. I thought it was pretty good. It definitely doesn't break any new ground with its puzzle solving, which is pretty light. It's exploration, which is limited by its very linear, borderline on rails kind of movement in the game at sometimes, but I liked it. I think that kind of thing allows just enough exploration where you feel like you can kind of pick things up and learn things if you want, but also just kind of keep the pacing really strong and focused so that the narrative stays intact and well paced throughout. So I think they struck a good balance there for the sake of a game that's trying to be mostly about the narrative. I think they did well in that regard. And it's just a good time. So maybe you save this one as we get a little closer to the Halloween months. It doesn't feel particularly like Halloween-y or anything like that, but it does kind of fit the bill of being like a nice spooky game. So maybe you want to save it for September or October. But yeah, it still Wakes the Deep. Really great Game Pass get. Nice little 4 to 5 hour weekend kind of experience. Glad I played it. After Still Wakes the Deep, I immediately jumped into Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, which is a Japanese game where it is ruined because you have to play as an illegal Mexican immigrant coming into the country and stealing all the Japanese jobs because that is what because that is unfortunately what the DEI demanded of this game. No, Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess is that new Capcom game I've been kind of talking about on the show a little bit here and there, talking about how I was definitely going to give this a go once it came to Game Pass. It launched day one into Game Pass last Friday, and I'm glad I played it because this game is really cool. So I'm not done with it by any stretch of the imagination. I played maybe an hour, so I still have a lot to see and learn. But from what I see or what I hear, the game's only like 10 hours long, which is greatly appreciated as a little side note. But this game is very unique. So I know I wasn't able to basically say what it was last week because it's a very unique gameplay style. But to try and sum it up for you, it's like tower defense meets like Muso hack and slash Japanese samurai gameplay. So you play as like this guy, and like all these creatures and monsters are taking over the world to make people pay for their sins or whatever. And this goddess is here to like close these torii gates and put these monsters back to where they came from. And you as a warrior have to basically defend these torii, like fend off the horde of enemies at these torii gates. It's like level based, so you like pick the next level. There's little hubs where you can like upgrade and do different things, and light RPG mechanics like upgrades and skills and all that, and filling out your base. But for the most part, it's just level based. So it'll be like level, boss level, whatever. And it's really good. So like basically every level starts, you kind of like go around, you collect your resources, then you unlock minions and like different like little soldiers, and then you command them around the map. Like you go here, you do this kind of attack, you do this kind of attack, you wait here, you attack here, you go mine this, whatever. Kind of like Pikmin or like any strategy game. It's like go get resources, go attack this area, and then you set it up, and then when you're ready to go, you take your goddess, you lead her down the path to the torii gate, and as soon as she starts walking towards the path to the gate, the onslaught comes, the gates open, and all the enemies rush out, and then you and all your minions that you've set up have to go and fend off the horde and protect the goddess as she slowly walks her way towards the torii gate to close it and stop the bad guys from coming in. So it's pretty straightforward. It's very much action meets strategy, and it's a really nice blend of the two. I wouldn't say you have to be a big strategy game player to really appreciate this game, but I wouldn't say that you have to like mindless hack and slash games to enjoy this. I feel like it's a really great way of taking some of those kind of like Japanese hack and slashy third person action samurai type games and giving it a little depth, giving it a little, use your brain to figure out, the best way to do this battle. And so I quite like it. I love games like Pikmin. I love games like Warcraft 2 and Command and Conquer and stuff like that. So Halo Wars, I love Halo Wars. So to me, this is really right up my alley because it is fun, basic third person hack and slash action, like light attack, strong attack, evade basically is like your attack combos and buttons. It's not Souls-like. You don't have to fucking learn the perfect parry and master the mechanics and the moves of your enemies. So it's pretty straightforward gameplay from that perspective, but with some light strategy stuff. So if you like strategy games, there's something fun there as well. I like tower defense. I like strategy. I like hack and slash third person action. So you meld it all together the way this game does. This game is very fun. It is very cool. It's very unique, which I really greatly appreciate. We just don't get a lot of stuff like this anymore where it's just like, hey, here's a super novel idea. let's try something completely different. And I really respect these guys for doing that, and I really appreciate this game for being that. And it couldn't be a better Game Pass game, because this is the kind of game where I know the general Xbox audience would not normally go for this game, but being in Game Pass, it's one of those like, why wouldn't you give it a try? Just see what it's like. Maybe this isn't normally the kind of game you would go for, but you never know. And thanks to Game Pass, you have the opportunity to get in there and give it a try without putting any money down. So I highly recommend. Just if any of what I just said sounds interesting or something like you might be curious to try out, give it a go. This game's really, really cool. I've actually been playing it on my Logitech G Cloud because I find it's the perfect mobile handheld game. So got YouTube running in the background, listening to my favorite anti-DEI YouTubers going on about how the world will never be the same again, as I like to play this game on my couch. But yeah, it's good. I'm just watching stupid fucking mindless videos of people going on cruises and eating food because they're fat asses like myself, while I play Path of the Goddess on my Logitech G Cloud. So having a good time playing games. Still Wakes the Deep, Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, highly recommend, but not as much as those cheesy Street Chalupas from Taco Bell. So it's been a good week, good games, good food. And now let's take a quick break here before we get into the main news and take a little water break, take a stretch break. Come back and we'll talk about the FTC and all this, whatever's going on with Microsoft. Oh boy. All right, we're back. So let's jump into the news, starting with this FTC stuff. So FTC saw that Xbox raised their prices on Game Pass again, said, hey, this is like kind of lending a lot of credibility to the things we were saying that Xbox would do if they were able to corner the market a little more by getting Activision Blizzard. So here we are, kind of bringing back this argument and trying to further investigate the situation here with Microsoft now that they own Activision Blizzard. So let's just read the two stories, the update and the original story from VGC. The FTC, their Federal Trade Commission, has called Microsoft's recent announced Game Pass price increase the exact sort of consumer harm that they tried to stop by fighting the company's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Following a court victory for Microsoft last year with the FTC, which the FTC is currently appealing, the corporation completed its $69 billion acquisition of Activision back in October. The agency is continuing to submit evidence while its appeal is considered, and in a new filing on Thursday, it highlighted Microsoft's new Game Pass tiers, which included a price increase for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and a new standard tier that doesn't include day one releases. Quote, product degradation, removing the most valuable games from Microsoft's new service, combined with price increases for existing users, is exactly the sort of consumer harm that the merger the FTC has alleged, they wrote. Microsoft's price increase and product degradation, combined with Microsoft's reduced investment in output and product quality via employee layoffs, are the hallmarks of a firm exercising market power post-merger. The FTC later goes on to note that Microsoft's price increase coincides with the adding of Call of Duty to Game Pass, the most expensive tier, and discounting the console tier, which will have happened shortly before the release of COD's newest game, Black Ops 6. They note that, quote, Microsoft's promise that the acquisition would benefit consumers by making COD available to more Game Pass subscribers on the day of its release on console, with no price increases for the service based on acquisition. The agency concludes that by claiming that Microsoft's post-merger actions vindicates its earlier skepticism of promising it made regarding Game Pass. So before we get into the update where Microsoft kind of responds, I do just want to say, I hate this because it kind of makes me feel like the bad guy trying to like defend the corporation over the government agency fighting for consumer protections. But the increase in price of Game Pass was inevitable with or without Activision. I mean, look around and look at every other subscription service that has, because they have all gone up in cost over the past 2 years. So this was an inevitability, not a contingency based on whether or not they acquired Activision Blizzard. So I think that's kind of a bad faith argument. It's kind of a straw man argument, although they feel like they can make it because the timing lines up to where they can say, well, look, they bought Activision, then prices went up. So I hate having to say this, but I feel like you got to kind of say like, that's kind of a straw man argument, although I see why they think they can get away with making this argument. The other thing is they're saying, well, Microsoft's actually taking away Call of Duty for more players by changing the Game Pass tiers to where now some tiers don't include day one releases. So actually they're doing the opposite of what they said. And I think to that point, I don't think that was Microsoft's intention, but I think that is a way of them kind of catching Microsoft on a technicality because of Microsoft's constant obsession with yelling and talking about everything all the time and not just being careful with their words and shutting up and not saying things when they don't need to. So I think that one's actually kind of funny because they're always like, this merger, this acquisition is about making Call of Duty available to more players. It's like, well, now you just shut off some of your Game Pass subscribers. But still, the point remains. I mean, they took down the barrier where PlayStation players get exclusive content and early access and things like that, so that made it more accessible. Plus, they're putting the game on Game Pass. Putting it on Game Pass in any capacity makes it accessible to more people than it would before, because before it wasn't on any tier of Game Pass. So I think Microsoft's technically still in the clear here, but I do think it's funny that they kind of pulled out that hypocrisy with this observation. Now, Microsoft responds. This is what they have to say to the comments about it being a degraded, Xbox offering a degraded experience for certain Game Pass subscribers. They say, while Game Pass Ultimate's price will increase from $17 to $20 a month, with service, the service will offer more value through many new games available day and date. Among them is the upcoming Black Ops 6, which has never before, the franchise has never been before been available day and date on the platform. Microsoft goes on to claim that the FTC is trying to shift focus to the subscription market now that Microsoft has alleviated regulatory fears that it would make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox, and claims that it is a common practice for business and change service offerings over time. The FTC barely mentioned the subscription at trial, instead focusing on the theory that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from Sony's console. The letter continues, quote, the district court correctly rejected that theory, which is now further eroded by Microsoft and Sony's 10-year agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, a contract Sony was thrilled to enter. While the FTC has now tried to shift the focus to its allegation of subscription market, this letter does not map onto the argument below, which is, quote, setting aside the fact that this is common for business to change service offerings over time, the FTC case in all of its alleged markets has always been premised on a vertical foreclosure that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from rivals and therefore harm competition. But even in the alleged subscription markets, Call of Duty is not being withheld from anyone who wants it, and there remains no evidence anywhere of harm to competition. Sony's subscription service continues to thrive, even as they put few new games into their subscription day and date, unlike Microsoft. The transaction thus continues to benefit competition and consumers, exactly what the district court correctly found. So unfortunately, as much as I like the idea of the agency holding big businesses accountable and looking out for consumers, protection, everything, I don't think they have a leg to stand on. I think Microsoft's right here. Bringing it to Game Pass at all is bringing it to more players than ever before. And just because they restructure some of Game Pass doesn't mean they're taking it away from people. It means that they need to change the subscription market or their program in order to make it, more manageable for them. Something that is hopefully one day profitable and something that is more sustainable for them. So they made the game more available on more platforms. They took away the exclusivity the PlayStation had before, and now they're adding it to Game Pass, which is more accessibility than less. So I just don't think they have a leg to stand on here. But I do think the FTC does appropriately point out, hey, they acquired Activision, then they laid a bunch of people off, and then they realigned. Yeah, because now they took on all this unnatural growth that they just absorbed by buying Activision. Now they have all these redundancies and all this extra staff, and they need to kind of streamline and cut things and trim it up now and make it all one coherent thing, unless of a redundant, just overlapping blob of mass hiring due to the fact that one giant corporation consumed another giant corporation. So yeah, that sucks, and I appreciate the FTC for trying to hold them accountable for that. I just don't think that argument's really going to stand up. I think they have kind of all the right to be able to get away with what they've done, unfortunately. And hey, but this is the thing, right? This is what I was saying since the day they announced this acquisition, which is that this is what it's going to result in. It's like you're going to get Call of Duty on Game Pass, but at what cost? People are going to lose their jobs. People are going to be put into the Call of Duty mines forevermore. This isn't what you guys want. This isn't what we should want as gamers. We want Xbox to find natural partners to grow with, like they've done in the past. Or we want them to make smart acquisitions. I think Obsidian was a very smart, natural acquisition. I think even Bethesda was actually, it was a big one. It was a savvy one, but it was a smart one for them. Activision was very unnatural. It was, we can buy it, so let's buy it kind of thing. And yeah, this is the outcome of that. People lose their jobs. They have more pressure than ever before to make Game Pass grow and be sustainable. They have more pressure than ever before to get more people buying Xbox games. That's why games are going to PlayStation. So it's this is what you guys wanted when you were changing your fucking stupid little Twitter profile pictures to be Duke of Xbox, Gamer 69. I'm the biggest Xbox fan. Here's my sizzle reel of all the latest badass Game Pass games we're getting, because my whole identity is
hung on whether or not Xbox sells consoles because I have no fucking life. It's like, this is what you people fucking champion on the sidelines for years and years. Lay people off. Close studios. Raise prices. That's what you're begging for when you ask for Microsoft to buy Activision. But I guess a lot of people weren't able to see that, even though, I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back too much here because I don't think I'm particularly intelligent, but I mean, even I could see that coming from a mile away, that this was an inevitability. And lo and behold, here we fucking are. So FTC's got some points. I think overall what they're saying is not going to hold up, and Microsoft is pretty much in the clear for what they've done. And their main argument there is kind of a straw man, because it is true. Their whole thing was like, the FTC went about it the wrong way the whole time. It was always like, poor Sony, what are they going to do without Xbox is going to take things away from poor baby Sony. When the argument should have been like, what about the fucking consumers? What about the people who work for these companies that are going to be made redundant and laid off? And if that was the argument, I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, FTC, you go. But you spend all your time fucking cucking to Sony and not looking out for the employees and the consumers, and this is what you get. So yeah, I don't really want to go into this any much further because frankly, I'm so fucking tired of this stuff, and this story is such a nice, pleasant reminder to me that life has been so great the past 10 months since this deal went through, because we just haven't had to talk about this every fucking week, and I've really loved that. I've really, really loved that. So let's continue to not talk about it. Moving on, but speaking of Game Pass, Windows Central has a nice little write-up here. I took VGC's story because Windows Central sometimes is a little too long in the tooth with that SEO stuff, with their 5-paragraph openings telling you things you don't need to know. So VGC here, cutting straight to the point. Microsoft is reportedly exploring the possibility of introducing more new Game Pass tiers. According to Windows Central, these tiers include a cloud-only option and ad-supported tiers, and potentially the return of the family subscription option, which people have been clamoring for, waiting for, needing, longing for. I don't know. Microsoft's reportedly working towards a cloud-only Game Pass tier, which would be relatively cheap and accessible to users who wouldn't need to own a console. I think this is the tier that they've been lacking that has sorely needed to exist. It's claimed that the subscription to this tier would only be able to purchase digital games, which would tie in with Microsoft's plan to let players stream titles that they own through Xbox Cloud Gaming. Windows Central also claimed that they heard very tentative rumors of Xbox Game Pass Friends and Family returning in some form. Testing of the family membership, which allowed up to 5 people to access a single subscription for $25 a month, a price reportedly considered to be too generous by publishers, took place in 8 countries between the summers of 2022 and 2023. I didn't know this ended in those countries, actually. And while Microsoft previously said that exploring the possibilities of offering access to Game Pass in exchange for viewing advertisements, Windows Central claimed that the company isn't currently actively working towards an ad-based subscription tier. So I think this cloud one is the most obvious one. I mean, listen, man. This to me, this is the thing that makes the difference in value from PC Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate on console, which is that's like, it's not just that you're getting online and games day and date and access to the full Game Pass library. It's that you're also getting access to streaming. And I think like that is probably like a $7 to $10 value in and of itself, because you think about it, it's like Xbox is trying to grow outside of the traditional box. So how are you going to grow Xbox to people who you want to engage with this platform via just cell phones, tablets, TVs, Fire Sticks, all the rest? You need to give them a way to pay Game Pass that doesn't require PC stuff that they don't play and console stuff that they don't play and all this other shit. Give them a tier that's just streaming games. And yeah, and that's exactly what they need. And I think a $7, $8, $10 tier of Game Pass that's just cloud streaming, while that's not super sexy and exciting for all those hardcore Xbox players that definitely want Ultimate because we have Xbox hardware, I think this is a tier that you've needed to have because you're trying to legitimize Xbox as a platform in parts of Asia and parts around the world where they don't buy Xbox hardware or video game hardware at all, for that matter, and parts around the world where, yeah, maybe it'd be nice to have a gaming PC, but it's kind of a luxury item, so I think this is kind of a necessary tier to have, and it's kind of silly to me that they still haven't had one until this point. So I would assume that this is the next tier and it's coming relatively soon. But yeah, I question why we haven't had this already. As for the family plan, that's news to me. I didn't know that the testing in those 8 countries was temporary, and I didn't know that I didn't know it had ended. So yeah, that family plan, I've been waiting for that. I keep telling my girlfriend we need to get on that if they ever make it happen. I guess it's not necessarily coming anytime soon. Obviously, it wouldn't be $25. That was based on old pricing, and I agree that's too generous. I would think the sweet spot for that would be something like, I don't know, $40 a month or something, because people are just going to abuse it. It's just going to be that thing where like a bunch of boys get together and they split up the service, and it's like, yeah, me and my four best buddies share Game Pass. They all send me like $7 a month and we all do Game Pass together. It's like, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to find a competitive price point. If it's $20 a month for Game Pass Ultimate and you're offering a family plan, you might want to make that $50 a month or something like that, something a little steeper, because that plan is going to get abused like crazy among groups of friends and stuff, because that's how a lot of Xbox gamers are. They play games with their groups of friends and with their 2 to 4 buddies that they play Halo and Call of Duty and shit with. So yeah, they're all going to get in and have the same idea of like, let's just chip in. One guy subscribes to the family plan and we all pay him each month. So you might as well just price that kind of high, but at least put that out there as an option. I would certainly be interested in this tier because I could split this with a couple friends and get some saving on it. So obviously they're trying to figure out how not to cannibalize individual Game Pass subscriptions while also meeting the needs of families and groups that do need a family plan. So, but I think that's something they got to figure out. That's a plan you need to have offering, because you think about those families where like dad's a gamer and he has 2 kids and his kids are gamers. It's like, what, you have 3 separate Game Pass subscriptions or something in the household? Like, come on, figure it out. And then as for that last one where it's the subscription tier that's where it's advertisement based, I don't even want to talk about this tier. I hate every time this tier comes up. I know Phil Spencer tells the story of being in Africa and he was on that bus with a TV screen and you watch the ad for 2 minutes and then you get to play 2 minutes of a video game or something like. I hate this. I hate everything about this. I know we talked about the creative ways for them to get ads into games, and maybe it's not necessarily like download the new Domino's app and get 10% off your first order, and it's like, now back to your game. Maybe it's not necessarily that form of advertisement, but like still, it's like everyone hates the idea of the advertisement thing. I don't know, sell me on it, but like I don't want this. And maybe this is something that they're testing more for other markets, because if it's going to play out the way like a lot of people think it would play out, if it's like a Game Pass tier with advertisements, it just sounds like the kind of thing that would turn off more people than it would attract to the service, especially in like Western markets where we have a very specific way of engaging with games, and this is something that would be very, very, very annoying. So I don't know. I wonder about that one, but I also, God, fuck no, we don't need to. Don't forget to get DoorDash for 50% off your first meal. Now back to the scene in Halo Infinite where Cortana dies. Spoiler alert, that doesn't actually happen. I'm not spoiling shit, but I don't know. It's just weird. So let's bring on that streaming plan though. That needs to happen. And shout out to Windows Central for that scoop. It's a good one. But man, dude, you gotta have that. How else are you gonna grow Game Pass in like Africa and Asia and shit? It's like people are gonna be playing on their iPads and phones and stuff like that and TVs. How you can get the normies to want to buy an Xbox controller and subscribe to Game Pass just to play Call of Duty on their TV? You got to make it accessible as fuck. So do the streaming thing. I'm telling you, you need that tier. All right, last one here of the week. This is a good one. This is one that fills my heart with joy. And normally I don't like to celebrate in things that are bad news for something. Like obviously people are going to lose their jobs, and a whole creative group of people are now out on something they put so much of their heart and time and effort into. But fuck this show. If you haven't guessed, the Paramount Plus Halo live-action TV show has been canceled after just 2 seasons. The decision comes after season 2 of the show premiered in February. According to Deadline, Amblin Television, Xbox, and 343 Industries hope to find a new partner to continue the series. Please, guys, please don't. Just let it be. A spokesperson for Paramount Plus said in a statement, quote, "We're extremely proud of the ambitious series, and we would like to thank our partners at Xbox, 343 Industries, and Amblin Television, along with the showrunner executive producer David Weiner, his fellow executive producers, and the entire cast led by Pablo Schreiber as Master Chief, and the amazing crew for their outstanding work. We wish everyone the best going forward." 343 Industries added with the following, quote, "We deeply appreciate the millions of fans who propelled the Halo TV series to be a global success, and we remain committed to broadening the Halo universe in different ways in the future. We're grateful to Amblin and Paramount for their partnership in bringing our expansive sci-fi universe to viewers around the world. Halo started development as a TV show on at Xbox, where it stalled out for years. It was memorably featured as part of the disastrous E3 2013 Xbox One reveal, And then following that, the Xbox TV show was later resurrected at Paramount Plus in a bid to create the original content for the new streaming platform. So my guess is that, I know the first season did really well for Paramount Plus and they were bragging about it, but my guess is that first season sucked so bad and left such a bad taste in so many people's mouths that when the second season came out, I haven't watched the second season. I know everyone says who has seen it, it's a lot better. It's a huge improvement over the first season. I just think that first season burned so many people so bad that after a year and a half, 2 years or whatever between seasons, a lot of people were just like, I know it's supposedly better, but I don't care. Like, it was a bad show. Why would I come back to this? And I just think they were never able to recover from that very, very terrible first season that they had. And I think it's really just as plain and simple as that. So does it suck that the show is canceled? From the perspective of all the creative people who now don't get to finish their vision, it's like, yeah, but it's also kind of poetic because that is what the Halo video games are in a nutshell, right? Is you start a narrative, then you abandon the fucking narrative, and then you just kind of move on and do something completely unrelated. So, hey, at least now the TV show is finally being true to the game series in the sense that they are just fucking abandoning the story in the middle of what they're doing. And I just think from that perspective, it's kind of really cool to see them honor and respect the video game series for once by paying homage to something that is very accurate to the way it's portrayed in the video game. So I just think that's really cool. But sarcasm aside, listen, I know there's some of you guys who are like, Jesse, I watched season 2. It's so much better than season 1. You got to give it a try. I do not give a shit. That first season was such unforgivable trash. It was like the first episode happened. I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're doing their own thing. I kind of appreciate a different take on it. And I like to see where they're going. And with every episode throughout season 1, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then the 2 years in between season 1 and 2 is like that thing where, like, I mean, not to make lightly out of like something horrific that unfortunately happens to some people, but it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, something weird happened to me when I was a kid. I don't think about it a lot. And then you sit on it, and then you get older and you get older and you get older. And then one day when you're 37 in therapy, you go, oh my God, my uncle touched me. I was harassed as a child. It's like that kind of thing. It's like the longer I have sat with the reality of season 1 of the Halo TV show, the more it's like, oh my God, they inappropriately, they diddled Master Chief. Like, and I sat there and I watched. I was a bystander. And that's how it feels. So is season 2 better? Probably. Is it worth watching? Maybe. Do they deserve people to come back and give it another try? No. We gave you one fucking season. You couldn't come up with a single episode that was like, that's badass. Even the finale of the first season sucked ass. And it was just disappointing, man. And just everything surrounding Halo has been such a fucking negative, sad experience lately. It's like, I don't fucking know. Who cares? So I'm glad it's canceled. I really think the right thing to do at this point in time, 343 Xbox, stop trying to shop it. Amblin Television, fucking Steven Spielberg, you motherfucker. Stop trying to shop this show around. Don't put it on Netflix. I don't give a shit how much Netflix gives you for season 3. Don't do it. Don't do it. Cut your losses. Let it die. Let Halo just fucking lay fallow. In a perfect world right now, at this point, I would just say let 343 make a all new different IP. Just go make a fucking 3D character platformer game. Have some fun. Get, just wipe the slate clean and do something else. And then maybe in 10 years come back and be like, so the year is 2016 and we're doing a follow-up to Halo 5. Everything that's ever happened, books, video games, TV shows, none of that ever happened. It's 2016 and we're working on Halo 6. And then just that's all you gotta do. But I don't know, silliness aside, it's like I'm sure someone at Paramount, well, first of all, I'm sure Paramount has the numbers and they said, wow, the viewership for season 2 dropped off tremendously from season 1. Plus the show's incredibly expensive to make. We can't justify keeping it. I also think there's probably this air of like, wow, look how good The Last of Us was. Look how good Fallout was on Amazon Prime. We can't do this to Halo. Like the video game live action TV series can be and need to be way higher quality than this show was. Even if season 2 was good, I know it couldn't have been that good because the world would have fucking known. Someone somewhere would have been like, oh my God, Halo season 2. And it would have gotten into some extent the love and respect that maybe The Last of Us and Fallout did. But no one was ranting and raving about season 2 of Halo. It was just a bunch of Halo fans that were saying, oh no, it gets better than season 1. It's like, cool. Season 1 sucked, so that means this could be a total... Season 2 could be a fucking giant turd for 75 minutes an episode, and it could still be better than Season 1. So I don't know, man. I'm sorry to those who enjoyed the show, but I think the best thing at this point in time is to just give Halo a break. Let that booty hole just fucking relax and rest from it. Stop fucking this franchise with nonsense. Figure out a goddamn plan for Halo and then execute on it accordingly. It is your most important IP you've ever had, Xbox. Stop treating it so flippantly. I know it's not the most important thing you have now because now you got Bethesda and Activision and everything, but it should still be. And the only reason it isn't is from mismanagement. The fact that they allowed this TV show to exist in this incarnation, the fact that they allowed 343 to flounder around while Halo Infinite did what it did. Get your shit together, guys. Not 343, but Xbox. It's like, learn how to manage this shit. You know? Like, everyone has those days. Everyone makes mistakes. Just look at the old Mario movie from the 90s that sucks donkey dick. But at least Nintendo figured out, all right, can't let that happen again. And then they went from putting out a really, really mediocre, shitty, stupid, weird, esoteric Mario movie to 30 years later making a very, very, very mid little kiddie Minions poo-poo pee-pee Mario movie that made over $1 billion at the box office. So I guess what I'm trying to say is understand your source material, chill the fuck out, take a break. We don't need to shop this thing around. I feel like shopping it around is taking away the exact opposite lesson of what they should be taking away from this. It is a bad show. Let it die. We have lost way better TV shows prematurely than Halo. If Arrested Development had to end after season 3, then why the fuck should Halo get a season 3? Just let it die. Let it die. Please. Sorry to all the Halo TV show fans out there. I hate that show. But that's it for all of our big news stories. You guys, let's wrap it on up with the stories important enough to make the podcast, but not important enough to warrant their own discussions. These small news stories that we use to round out the podcast. First here, we got not one, but two major Xbox teams unionizing. So first up, Bethesda Game Studios has become the first Microsoft video game studio to fully unionize under the Communication Workers of America. The union was formed after 241 developers, artists, engineers, programmers, designers, all signed and authorized, indicating that they wanted to unionize or a union to represent via online portal. Microsoft has recognized the union, that is with the Communication Workers of America. So it's happening. They're unionizing. They wrote on Twitter, "We, a majority of developers at Bethesda Game Studios, Dallas, Rockville, and Austin, are ecstatic to announce that we are forming our own union," Bethesda wrote on Twitter. "Together, as #1 Bethesda Game Studios USA, we advocate for better treatment of every developer at Bethesda Game Studios, setting the new standard for our industry. As a democratic organization, we seek to empower the collective wishes of our studios workers, having safe, sustainable, and equitable work environments for all, having a proper seat at the discussion table allow us all of us to wish into reality, joining in solidarity with our fellow members at ZeniMax Workers, and all of the CWA union. We push to increase job security, compensation, transparency, and flexibility to continue creating games we love. As we work towards our first contract with Microsoft, we hope you'll join us in voicing your support and serve as an example into the next era of game development." All right. But not only that, but Blizzard saw that happen and said, not to be done up, we want to unionize too. So then Blizzard comes out, over 500 members of the team join the Communications Workers of America, and Microsoft's subsidiary Blizzard Entertainment has recognized their union. So the World of Warcraft maker become the first wall-to-wall union at Activision Blizzard, and the largest at Microsoft for an owned studio, so they just beat out Bethesda a day later. Quote, "What we've accomplished here at World of Warcraft is just the beginning," said Eric Lanham, test analysis and member of World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild. "My colleagues and I are embarking on a quest to secure better pay, benefits, and job security through a strong union contract. We all know that when workers have a protected voice, it's a win-win for employee standards, the studio, and World of Warcraft fans looking for the best game experience. Through our union, we're ready to tank any obstacles, heal any wounds, and DPS through the challenges ahead. Together, we will ensure full tiers that set bonuses with the inclusion of all job titles in the same union." A spokesperson for Microsoft told Variety, quote, We continue to support our employees' right to choose how they are represented in the workplace and will engage in good faith negotiations with CWA as they work towards a collective bargaining agreement. So I would assume a lot of people are trying to get in on this union as fast as possible because they see these job cuts that have happened and these job cuts that are on the horizon. They say, well, let's unionize and try to do what we can to fight for equal rights and better representation, all these things to try and better shield ourselves and protect ourselves going forward. I don't know how this works out still with unions. I'm just too ignorant to know enough about unions in the first place, but that's why I put it down at the bottom here, despite it actually being pretty important news, is because I'm just not smart enough to be able to speak to this. But I really don't understand how this works in the games industry when everything is done so remotely. Like people, it's like teams from all over the world working together. And I don't know how you unionize across different states and different countries like that. But it seems like it's not just a one-size-fits-all. Everyone gets to unionize. It's certain teams in certain states and certain places and stuff. But I don't know. More power to them. My kind of stance on this is like, I don't know. If you're able to fight for a better working environment for you and your team, I mean, what's the point of having a fucking job if people aren't happy and feel like they're treated right? So whatever. If this is a thing you can do and it makes your workplace a better, healthier, safer environment, I'm happy for you. Good for you. It's Microsoft's money. What the fuck do I care? Next up, VGC reports Capcom has claimed that's looking into creating more Mega Man games more regularly. Speaking during questions and answer portion of the 45th Ordinary General Shareholder Meeting, when asked about plans for the franchise, Capcom said, Mega Man is one of our high-valued IPs, and we're considering how to create games for it on an ongoing basis. Mega Man barely gets any games these years. The last one was in 2018. It was Mega Man 11. But before that, the most previous entry was in 2010. So we don't get Mega Man very often, but it looks like they're trying to figure out how to bring Mega Man back in a more regular way, aside from just re-release collections like we've had in recent years. Next up, Warner Bros. Games has acquired Player First Games, the studio behind the free-to-play platform Multiverses, for an undisclosed sum of money. Following the acquisition, the LA-based team will continue to be run by the co-founders Tony Hyun and Chris White. It's interesting to note here. It's like the first acquisition we've talked about in a year full of just game studio shutdowns, so that's nice. And finally, a new Xbox Series X and S wireless controller seemingly leaked from an official announcement. According to the ever-reliable data miner Billy Kuhn, Microsoft will release an Xbox wireless controller called Sky Cypher Special Edition in August. Writing on Deal Labs, they claim that the blue controller will be transparent in its finish, similar to that Forza Horizon 5 controller from a few years back. The Xbox Sky Cypher controller is expected to release or be revealed on July 31st and then released sometime in August, most likely on the 13th. It will cost $70 in US money. Guys, that is it for all of our news this week. Now we go to the end of the podcast, the best part of the podcast. We go into the comments, the shout-outs, the stuff from YouTube. You know how it is. You go down to youtube.com. You click on Xbox On Podcast, latest episode of the podcast, and you leave a comment. You say anything nice, anything mean, anything in between. And if you're a drive-by commenter, I can't really do much to stop you, but we'll make fun of you or make an example of you or do something, I guess. Maybe I don't really know, but you can comment. I don't really care. It's fine. We'll probably read it on the podcast. Although this week there were a couple of comments I just straight up didn't read because I really didn't know how to fit them into the show. I didn't know if they were just trying to be mean and just be like, I don't know. It's not really like, oh, you were mean, I don't want to read your comments. More like, I don't think you listen to the podcast. I think you just saw the title of the show, want to drop a nasty comment and run. And so it's like, I just don't feel like this is productive. There's nothing really to talk about here. So I'm just going to leave this out. So a couple comments got left out, but here's the bulk of it. And if you guys had some stuff to say, I don't care. I'm happy to have you here. So let's start out with some nonsense about Black Ops 2 and other shit from Mr. Maug. And then we'll get into the argument about gaming on the decline. Mr. Maug writes in and says, apologies, Jesse, but I feel like Raul Menendez from Black Ops 2 was one of the worst Call of Duty characters. It feels like he's thrown in the game too quickly, and we're supposed to believe immediately that he's a threat, and that he is but then he unrealistically goes berserk after what happens to his sister. He somehow manages to outsmart the U.S. government/military, but hey, now that I've beaten Black Ops 2, I just need to get through Black Ops 3 and Cold War for the campaigns. All right. To each their own. I mean, I don't think the pacing or storytelling of Black Ops 2 is particularly strong, and a lot of that has to do with the very wide-ranging, branching narrative choices, and also just because I think it was a very ambitious game that they had 2 years to make, and so it feels a little rough around the edges with some of the campaign parts. But overall, I think Raul Menendez just still comes off as kind of like a badass villain, and I think he's got like the tone, his aggression, everything. It's just kind of psycho crazy, and I think that's fun in Call of Duty, even though, yeah, We don't get a lot of backstory. We don't get a lot of flesh out. We don't get enough of that in a game that's as brisk as Black Ops 2 is from the campaign perspective, and that's just jumping around time periods all over the place like this game is. He's pretty cool. He's pretty badass, in my opinion. But hey, now you just have Black Ops 3 and Cold War. Now, I will warn you in advance. So you've beaten World at War, which is God tier. You've beaten Black Ops 1, which is God tier. You've beaten Black Ops 2, which isn't perfect, but it's pretty fucking good, and the multiplayer is amazing. Here's a friendly heads up if you haven't already started. Black Ops 3 is a dog shit campaign. You can skip that game. I know there are a lot of Black Ops 3 fans out there. Black Ops 3 is like, it's like the one Black Ops game I hate, and I know it's controversial because people love that game so much, but I just gotta say, I have no love for Black Ops 3. I think that game is absolute doggy doo-doo. The zombies mode in that game is pretty good. The multiplayer is shit, and the campaign is shit, and I don't know, it just feels so creatively like confused, like they just threw a bunch of ideas at the wall, and this is what we got. You can skip Black Ops 3, and you will miss nothing about the Black Ops narrative. It is Black Ops only in name. It is just a nonsensical hodgepodge of bullshit aside from that. That campaign, also, aside from having nothing to do with the other characters in the previous story, is just such a dog shit story with dog shit characters. You do not have to play Black Ops 3. Do it if you want. I did it just because I felt obligated to do it as well. So I understand if that's where you're coming from. But boy, oh boy, skip it. Black Ops Cold War, on the other hand, now that game's fucking badass. Its ending is a little abrupt and out of nowhere and a little short, but oh boy, the ride is good. The ride is very. Speaking of badass villains, Russell Adler, we got a job to do, bro. You're gonna love it. Black Ops Cold War is such a good campaign. All right, you continue on and said, so because this is an Xbox podcast, I want to ask, what are your thoughts on those AR/XR glasses that have popped up where they have like a micro LED display in them, and then it's like playing on a big TV, but of course the size of sunglasses? I just ordered a pair, and I'm excited to use them when I travel next month. Also, you should know that the car on my profile picture is not a Nissan Z. It's the car you want the most, the Toyota GR86. I don't know why I couldn't tell that. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's small. Maybe because it looks like a little fish lens side view. But you're right. It is a Toyota GR86. And it's the new Gen 2 model. So I'm dumb. I'm stupid. But Mr. Maug, what did you expect from me? I'm an Xbox podcaster. Of course, I'm a dumb, stupid idiot. So thank you for the correction there. And I must say, I have no idea what you're talking about. The AR XR goggles. AR XR goggles. OLED display. I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's look these up real quick. How have I not heard about these? Yeah, I know about smart glasses, like the Ray-Bans one with like Google and Alexa shit in them and all that stuff, but I didn't know anything about these. I don't have an opinion. I love stupid tech. I love cool new tech, gimmicky tech. I'm always for new stuff like this. So it's just platform iOS. I doubt it. This is probably some random made in China bullcrap. But I would play around with something like this. I'm not gonna spend $300 on these, but I love shit like this. So I would absolutely play around with it if given the chance. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. How do you play? It only connects to like your PC, or you play with your Xbox? It looks like, yeah, I don't know, cool stuff, I guess. Mr. Malk, thank you for writing in. I wish I had more to say, but there we are. Mike Clark writes in and says, great show, Jesse. There's a lot to delve into, and I'm eager to type out an extensive response. However, this week I'm on vacation and only have a tiny 3x7 screen, which is a challenge to see and use for communication at my age. LOL. Well, Mike Clark, I only read this just to say, well, one, we're not going to go through an episode of the podcast without including you. And two, enjoy your vacation, man. Much deserved. Hope you have a great time. Let us know how it is when you get back. Tell us as little as much as you're comfortable sharing, and we'd love to hear from you, Mike Clark. Thank you. God bless. Have a great and safe trip. Next up, Bill Clay 2701 writes in. This is one of those, I don't know if it's a drive-by comment. I don't know if this is a listener writing in. Either way, this is a pretty tame comment, so let's go ahead and read it. In regards to the conversation of is Xbox or is gaming as a whole on the decline, which seemed to be kind of a rage bait title that drew a lot of attention, this guy writes in and says, It's rather obvious. It's been on the decline if you remember the PS2 360 era and before. The rush to 4K was such a bad business move for consumers, but great for hardware manufacturers. Hey, stamp 8K on the box, LOL. I'll be honest with you, Bill Clay. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, here's the thing is, if you take PlayStation 2 and Xbox and GameCube and add up the number of units sold across all three consoles, and then you take Wii, Xbox 360, PS3, and add up the total number of consoles sold, and then the same thing with Wii U and PS4 and Xbox One, and then Switch and Xbox Series and PS5, it seems pretty obvious that there is a consistent number of people who buy video game consoles. It seems like it's usually around 2 to 250 million people. And it seems like from that perspective, gaming is in a pretty stagnant place. It's kind of shrinking, but it's mostly pretty much just stagnant. But I'm talking more about gaming dying just in terms of like engagement, because newer generations are less into playing the latest and greatest AAA video games and more into just social life and social media. And that when it comes to gaming, it's like, yeah, everyone has an Xbox or a PlayStation, but they're not necessarily playing The Last of Us and Halo on it. They're playing like Fortnite, Roblox, Fortnite, Roblox, Fortnite. You know, it's like, is the problem that we've gotten to a point in the world where nobody wants to read, nobody wants to watch a movie, nobody wants to play a video game. We just want to kind of chill. Everything is just about chilling, and music's on the decline to some extent. Video games on the decline to some extent, and movies are on the decline to some extent, and books have like always been on the decline my whole life, because people don't want to use their brains and stay focused and engage on stuff. They just kind of want to like chill the fuck out. They just want to watch YouTube, watch TikTok, post on Twitter, read the latest story that's so they know what, you know, they're in the loop when they go to school or work the next day. They know the conversation that we're having. And when people play video games, they're not really playing video games. They're just kind of like socializing. They're just kind of like, yeah, we're dicking around in Among Us. We're just dicking around in Apex or Warzone or Fortnite. We're not like hardcore playing games. It's like we play the game, but the gameplay is secondary to the excuse to exist together on a platform and socialize. And so I'm not saying there's anything good or bad about that. I'm just saying I feel like you can see all forms of entertainment are kind of on this decline where there is less engagement and less interest in these things than ever before or than in recent history, because it just seems like newer generations are just, they like, the cool thing today seems like to not have a hobby, to not have a skill, to not have a hobby, to not have like some kind of thing you've picked up and learned. Like, no, I feel like no one today is like learning how to play guitar, learning how to skateboard, learning how to be a good basketball player, learning how to whatever. It's like we're all just kind of like socializing. It's like instead of like learning how to play the piano or learning how to horseback ride, kids are like trying to figure out how to make the most meta videos on TikTok to garner the most amount of clout possible on the internet. It's like that's where people focus their bandwidth and their intention and their efforts. It's like instead of like, I don't know, learning, like finally writing that book I've been talking, you know, this is a joke, I'm not trying to write a book, but you know, instead of like finally writing that book I've been talking about writing for 20 years of my life, let me just become like a professional shit poster on the internet. Like I'll put all my creative energy and all my free time into doing that. Dude, to each their own. Who gives a shit? If that's what people want to do, by all means. I'm not saying it's a problem or it's a bad thing. It just seems like, from my perspective, and like other people are noticing this too, that there's just a general decline in interest in kind of doing or becoming or learning much of anything, and that everyone is so consumed with social media and social media adjacent engagement that it's like that is where everyone is. Like, I mean, the majority, like, talk to the young kids, you know, it's like, what is the majority of things people are doing now to be creative, to exercise their creative output? Like, best case scenario, like YouTube podcasting, maybe. Like, everyone wants to be a podcaster. Everyone wants to be a YouTuber. Everyone wants to be a famous TikTok page. Everyone wants to make the spiciest, funniest meme you saw on Twitter today. But it's like, I don't know, who the fuck is deeply engaged in first person or single player Japanese role-playing games because they love the deep, rich lore, world building and storytelling. It seems like that stuff's just on the decline. But I feel like a lot of people kind of took my comments of that conversation
in a different direction, or maybe didn't listen to the podcast and just saw the title and the thumbnail, and then we're like, oh, you idiot. Xbox is gay and dying, but PlayStation is strong and healthy and beautiful and has large muscles. Like, I don't know, man. What are we even talking about here? Bill Clay, thank you for writing in. I really don't know what 8K or 4K has to do with any of it, but I do appreciate you writing in. And if you actually are listening to the podcast and I've mischaracterized you, feel free to write in and be like, hey, bastard, I've been listening to the show for like 3 months, you idiot. Seems like you'll never get another comment again, Jesse, from me at least, because you're dumb and you mistreated my kindness and my interaction with your podcast. And from that perspective, I'm sorry, Bill Clay. Please come back. Please love me once more. Speaking of potential drive-by commenters, I don't know. Megatron 901 Decepticon 9 wrote in. Not Megatron Decepticon, but Megatron 901 Decepticon 9. Plus his profile picture is the guy from Darksiders 2. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Anyone can look up that gaming's not on the decline. It's Xbox that's constantly in the decline. The main reason we even have to ask if gaming is declining is because everyone has record growth but Xbox. No one even said a word about declining in gaming until Xbox mouthpieces started. It's crazy how last place in all of gaming makes the statement, and people have to ask themselves, is it declining? Yet every other every other in gaming is doing fine. At the same time, seeing Xbox give away everything that make Xbox just to be in gaming conversation because Xbox rather buy relevant than create it. What? And push something that should be a side dish, Game Pass, and not make quality games for sell, not rent. What the fuck? Megatron 901 Decepticon 9? Again, are you a drive-by commenter? Maybe you've been listening to the podcast for 9 months and you haven't commented because you're so busy raising your two twin children who are only 13 months old. I don't know. But this is an incomprehensible comment. What the fuck? Yeah, Xbox is kind of on the decline. I'm not gonna disagree with you on that. But my conversation was, is gaming on the decline? Sounds like you didn't listen to the podcast, or you use this as an excuse to say what you want to say. But in either case, Megatron, Decepticon, and all the numbers in between, God bless, have a great week, and try those new Street Chalupas. They are phenomenal. All right, let's talk about streaming here. Cronky writes in about streaming and says, I can't decide. Sorry, let's restart that because he didn't say that. I made that up. I can't get behind the idea of streaming games. Maybe if you're in a city where you can depend on better internet, but I live in a very rural area, and I know it wouldn't work well out here. Having a game downloaded on the device is just a superior way to play games. Also, I suspect that the streaming is going to be way more expensive than Game Pass for Microsoft to maintain if it ever grows to a decent size. So if they manage to get you off the console, this will soon become more expensive for a way for them to play, for you to play, than owning a console once they start increasing the subscription prices. I know you will doubt that second part. Look at the way that millions of stories of Netflix, etc., and AI companies, these things are prohibitively expensive to run, and Microsoft is taking it up a notch. It's not broadcasting a video, it's having a massive server farms that are actually running games and streaming them. This will be absurdly expensive for them. And unlike selling hardware, they don't get any initial cost back. I actually don't disagree with you on this, Cronky. I think you make a really good point. I think the only thing Microsoft has going for them in this regard is that they control the full stack because their Xbox servers are run off Azure, which is something that they own and support. So it's kind of one hand of the company feeding into the other. But aside from that, I think you actually make a very good point, which is that this infrastructure isn't dirt cheap. Like, it costs money to own and operate, or to run and operate. And we just don't think about that because on the consumer end, we don't get that cost passed down to us, at least not yet, like we do when you buy a traditional console and have to buy that big box and then support it with games and subscription services. Whereas right now, it's like the idea of streaming is just subscribe and stream. It's pretty cheap, huh? But I agree with what you're saying. There's an economic sustainability part to it, but there's also an environmental sustainability part to it as well, where apparently these cloud streaming farms are incredibly terrible for the environment, the amount of energy it takes to run these servers and everything. So I think there's a lot of issues and a lot of potential threats that come with cloud streaming. I don't think you made a bad point at all. I started this podcast to talk about video games, but Microsoft keeps getting involved in FTC battles and fucking streaming and subscription models and all these things that just make it hard for me to talk about like Master Chief Cool, Marcus Phoenix Go Boom Boom, because they keep getting involved in all this shit. But Cronky, good writing, and I think it's an astute observation. I got nothing to say to it, though. You got me stumped. All right, final comment of the week. It's a long one, but it comes from a good boy, Mr. Cargo Runner 9960, who writes in, and I titled this long comment. He says, "You have said that there will be a new Xbox Series X and a docked handheld Xbox in the future. But I think Microsoft currently is having a tough job deciding on their next hardware products. I don't think it's as easy as people think it will be." All right, number one, a handheld is usually a generation behind the full-size console. Digital Foundry said it'd be hard to make a handheld Series S. The Steam Deck cannot run all modern games, for example, and we all know that the Switch is struggling to play new AAA releases when it gets those released. Number two, with Series S and X, Microsoft wanted feature parity. Number three, the Series S has sold more than the Series X. The Series S sales have spiked with CAA College Football 25, for example. It seems that, to me, Xbox will need a replacement for the Series S, but a handheld will not be a cheap enough or powerful enough way to replace the current Series S console. Sarah Bonds already said the next generation is going to be a big leap in technology, so they must work on a new high-end Series X replacement. So I think that there will be two traditional next Xbox generation consoles, a new Series S and a new Series X, and a new game release that will have to work on both again. I am also guessing Microsoft will release a handheld device, but this will be a completely separate piece of hardware that's not linked to a console generation. It will be around the same power as the Series S, but with more RAM. New releases will not need to work on the Xbox handheld. Instead, the optional certification system will be in place for you to know which games do and don't run natively on the handheld, and which games had to be streamed versus played offline. I think this handheld will be more expensive than the Series X, and the dock will be an optional accessory. The dock will also be expensive, as it would have to be a dedicated AI upscaling chip in it to scale the handheld imaging up to a TV image. Long term, I don't think Xbox are interested in competing with Sony to have the most powerful console. If the Series S console sales spike for COD and GTA 6, then they are more likely to drop the high-end console and just focus on being the cheapest way to play AAA games. I agree with a lot of what you're saying here, Cargo Runner, but I do push back on some of it, and so it's going to be hard. It's a long comment, so there's a lot to touch on, but I think it's a really good point that maybe what they're going to do is have a new Xbox mainstream console, and then the handheld will be separate from it and not necessarily considered part of that generation, or maybe they both release around the same time, but they make it clear that like this handheld does not do everything the console does, but we will try our best to make it so. I think that's a good point, and I think that's very possible that something like that could happen. I don't think that's a crazy thing to think. So from that perspective, I think it's a really smart observation and thought. But from the perspective of I don't think Xbox will need to do the Series X and they're not interested in competing in power, that SKU I don't think is about selling the most hardware. I think the point of having that Series X type console is just because it is your Halo device. It's like with the iPhone every year. They do like nowadays, when I was on iPhone, it was like you got the regular iPhone and you got the S model. Now they do like the iPhone number and then the Plus model and then the Plus Max, right? Or the Max Ultra, whatever they do, right? It'll be like iPhone 16, iPhone 16 Plus, iPhone 16 Max, whatever. And Apple knows every fucking time that a lot more people are going to buy iPhone 16 than are going to buy iPhone 16 Max. But they make the Max because you want to have a device that is sexy, that catches people's attention, and that you can use as kind of like the Halo device. It's like, hey, introducing the latest generation of Xbox Series X2. It is the most powerful console ever built. It is amazing. It is $700, and only 10% of our audience is going to buy it. But we use that to appeal to the most hardcore users, and because it gets people interested in this new thing we're doing, knowing full well that most people are going to be like, oh, yo, let me see that new Xbox Series XX or whatever it's called, right? And then they look into it and like, damn, that thing's nice. I would love to get that. Oh, shit, $700. I don't know if I can swing that. Oh, but look, there's this Xbox Series S2, which is like $400, and it does like 95% of the same shit as the new Xbox Series X. Maybe I'll get one of those. And that's how you do it, New iPhone. Oh, look at it. It comes in Chrome. It knows your name. It does this. Even though it looks the exact same, it does literally nothing different from the last 25 iPhones. But it's got even uglier colors now, and it's got Siri will call you the C word in Australia, whatever, fuck you, you know? And then people go, ooh, I want to buy that. And then they look at it, and some people do buy it, but most people go, yeah, I'll just get the regular iPhone 16. I don't need the Plus, Max, Ultra. The camera's good enough, whatever. So I think you're underestimating that is how a lot of consumer hardware works, is you use the Halo, the nice, sexy top-of-line version to market the device to get eyes on it, and then you have a SKU that is more affordable, knowing full well that the majority of people are going to go with the affordable option. So, you know, how many times is GM commercial like the all-new Hummer EV, F-150 Lightning, Chevy Silverado, Expedition, Everest, fucking Mobile, and then everyone's like, cool, I'm going to go buy the $25,000 Chevy Malibu. Bad example, because I think every American company pretty much only sells pickup trucks at this point, but you get the idea. It's like, here's the Corvette. Corvette's awesome. You can only afford a Camaro. You know, it's that kind of shit. So here's the Laramie. You're going to buy a base model. Here's the Lariat. You're going to buy the base model. That's how it works. So I think you're overestimating it from that perspective. As for the Series or the Xbox handheld, I think you're going a little too far with the whole like, oh, the dock will need to have an upscaling 4K. No. I think they'll try to make a dumbed down version, and we're all going to understand that games are going to look a little rough around the edges on it. I don't think the dock thing is a guarantee for that Xbox handheld. That is just something I threw in there because I think it would be interesting to have it be like this dockable console. But if it is what you're saying, where they have a Series S and a Series X model and a handheld separately, then I think the handheld is just a handheld without the dock. I don't think the dock is an optional accessory. I think it's just a handheld. But anyway, I mean, this is all just speculation on your part and my part until something happens concrete. But here's the thing is, Sarah Bond promised a new Xbox console that is the most powerful thing, whatever. So I'm expecting that we're going to get that. And then Phil Spencer confirmed that Xbox is working on a handheld. So I suspect we will get a very powerful traditional console and we will get a handheld, because those are the two things that Xbox executives in recent months have told us we are getting. So that is why my expectation is, at the very least, we're getting both of those devices. But thank you for writing in, Mr. Cargo Runner. Thank you for your thoughtful analysis. And thank you for listening to the Xbox On podcast. That goes for all of you guys, even the ones that didn't listen, the ones that just left comments and never listened to a single goddamn second of the show. Thank you. Oh, wait. Here we go. I just realized, while we were recording, I got notification of one more comment. HD Hobbs just wrote in the nick of time, made it here. So he says, HD Hobbs at Sexy Beast says, Jesse. Nope, he didn't say Jesse. He said Xbox just released a really good-looking trailer alongside the reveal for Modern Warfare 3 coming to Game Pass. God damn it, we already talked about this. But perhaps Xbox should have waited to announce the price increase of Game Pass along with the new trailer. Maybe showing Modern Warfare 3 would have helped it soften the blow. Well, HD Hobbs, I think that what they did was very deliberate. I think they intentionally made the announcement and took the negative PR up front so that it could, people could bitch and moan and huff and puff about it. And then a few weeks later, put Modern Warfare 3 on Game Pass. So it's like, you guys kind of over you're not so mad anymore. You're over the Game Pass increase in price. All right, here's Call of Duty on Game Pass. There you go, guys. Here it is. And then it's like, whoa, hype. So I think they wanted people to get all the negativity out of their system so that when Call of Duty finally came to Game Pass, the narrative wouldn't be, they're raising Game Pass prices and Call of Duty's coming, because that seems more like Call of Duty is raising the prices and it's like good news with bad news. But if you get the bad news out of the way, let people take the piss out of you for a minute, let the dust settle, and then come in with good news, it's like, okay, now these two things are less related. Most people that aren't weird like us and think about Xbox news all day are probably just going to be like, oh, cool, Call of Duty's coming to Game Pass. That's great value. And then it's going to make them not think so much about the fact that their ultimate subscription is now $20. So that's the way I see it. But yeah, I don't know, whatever. Appreciate you writing in, and I appreciate all you guys listening. You guys be well. Try those Street Chalupas. They are so good. But until next weekend, or next week, why do I always say weekend? Until next week, be good, be safe, take care, be good to your loved ones. Don't be weird about the stuff. When it comes to the political stuff, when it comes to the social stuff, fuck your politicians. They're all looking out to make your life a living hell. Don't let them turn us against each other. Your enemy is not the fucking creative writer making a story about a woman. Your enemy is not the guy who thinks differently about political stuff than you.
Your enemy is not any of that shit. Enjoy the TV, enjoy the books, enjoy the video games. Be kind to your neighbor. Find ways to find common ground and agree, because you probably have the same fucking struggles in life to some extent, and you need to have each other's backs. Be kind. Let someone cut in front of you in traffic. Hold the door open for someone, even if it's not a lady, even if it's just another guy and he looks like a tough guy. Hold the door open. Just be a good person. Okay? God damn it. And fuck your politicians, fuck your corporations. And until next week, bury your dreams.